Hello, YouTube. I'm Julia. I'm alive. Yeah, so it's been a minute. It's been a year, and I am here again. Hello. This is a video which will be a 2023 check-in. I'm sharing an update as to why I have not been online for over a year now, and also about the astrology of the end of this year. And in this video, you will find readings for each zodiac sign, just a full 2023 check-in, because if you didn't know, as I am still processing this, we are now at the end of the year. And at the end of this month in September, we will be entering fall, and then winter comes, and that's how seasons work. So amazing. Yes, let me start by just saying that for those of you who are subscribers on YouTube here, and for those of you who are still here, thank you. Thank you for supporting me. For those of you who may be watching this video coming from a different place, thank you for being here. This is the first video that I am officially putting out since I took a very long break from social media. The last time I posted on YouTube was in June of last year, and I did post on other platforms for a few months after that. The last time I posted on Instagram was in December, I believe, of last year. So it's been a minute, and in this video I'm going to talk about why I took a break from social media, what that meant for me, what that has led to in my life, and also share with you all just some information about what is going on in these stars these days, and anything else that might come through in this video. So that's what we're doing. I am happy to be back, and I was happy to be gone. So I'm gonna again talk about all of that. So in this video, I'm gonna share an update about me, about my life, about why it's been crickets for a while. For those of you again who have reached out and wondered what was going on, who have shared messages with me, I really appreciate it. For those of you who may even have known more in depth about what I've been experiencing in my personal life over the past year, I also really appreciate the messages and the care, and just, here I am. So in this video as well, as I mentioned, you will receive readings for each zodiac sign, and this is going to have to do mostly with the transits that are closing out now and that we're going into for this last quarter of the year. We've had so many transits going on this year, and I'm sure those have affected you all in individual ways, and also 'tis the collective energy of the transits as well. So I will speak a bit about both of those, how collectively things have maybe shifted, and also how that may be affecting you for your sign. Before I dive into all of that, I also just wanted to share that I have had personal readings closed for a very long time now. Even before I had taken a break from social media, I have not been doing public personal readings for a long time, meaning that you were not previously, for the last year and a half or so, able to go on my website and book a reading. A lot of people have reached out to me about this, and I am very excited to announce that my readings are now opened again. So you can go to my website, which has just gotten an update as well, and you can book a personal reading with me. I'm very happy to be doing readings again. I have continued to do some personal and private readings, mainly live events and group readings here in Los Angeles, but also virtual readings for clients who I have seen on a consistent basis. So very excited to open it up to the public again. And if you have ever wanted to have a reading with me, or if you've wanted to have an astrology reading, if now feels like a good time to have a reading, I definitely invite you to book one. And right now my prices are the same as they were when I first closed my readings, but it is possible that I will be doing a price increase over the next few months. So if you would like to book a reading at the current rate, now is the time. I would also, in addition to that, like to offer a discount for those of you who are seeing me here on YouTube as a thank you for your support and just in general. So you can get an additional discount on booking a reading by using the code YouTube. Very creative, I know. And it's important to mention here one of the main reasons why I did close my readings and take a break from social media, and that is because of the fake accounts and scammers on social media, and specifically on Instagram and on TikTok. And these are people who are impersonating my accounts and then targeting my followers, trying to scam people for money. So I'm sure by now a lot of you have encountered one of these scammers, perhaps through profiles that are created to impersonate me, or whether it's been through other people that you may follow. It's a big problem on social media still, and this was something that really contributed to my decision to take a break from social media. This was something that's been going on for the past few years, but it got really bad in 2021 to 2022. And it was so bad last year that during this time, I had a lot of other personal things going on, which I'm going to talk about, but I did not have the bandwidth to continue dealing with these scam accounts. That said, as I am sharing online again, I want to just highlight that this is still an issue. I thought that by taking a break from social media and by closing my readings, this would help the problem, but I still receive messages even after almost a year now of not posting or having readings open. I still receive messages of people being targeted by these accounts, and these accounts will even tag me in their bios. So this is still an issue, and I know that other creators have this same struggle as well. So just know that that's something to look out for, and hopefully by now, because it has been such an ongoing issue, hopefully you all know to be discerning and to notice when this is a fake profile. But just in case you have been targeted or you may be targeted, I just want to highlight that I will never message you for a reading. I will never message you saying, "Hello, Grand Rising, I will read your soul and pay me all of your money." Yeah, I'm never going to say anything like that. And I don't know why that's their go-to line, "Hello, Grand Rising." So if you receive a message like that, maybe don't respond and report them. So yes, that has been one of the issues that has been ongoing on social media. This has just been another factor as to why I've considered if I even want to be on social media at all. That said, I have decided to come back online right now, and I also will share on that note that I'm going to see how this goes, and I'm going to see what works for me. And if there are continuous ongoing issues with this stuff, I may reorient the way that I'm approaching my relationship with social media and with sharing right now. But as of right now, I'm happy to be sharing again here, and I'm also happy to have my readings open again. So just know to be discerning. If anyone ever targets you for a reading, it is not me. I will never message you. And the only place that I book readings is on my website at julia-kelly.com. Okay, so now I'm going to share a more personal update as to why I took time offline and some of the things that I learned during that time as well. So let's get into that. Let's now talk about life. Where should I begin? Let me first start by just saying that, so I took a break from social media. I did not do the best job at communicating that I was taking a break. Again, a lot of people have reached out thinking, "Did you die?" I'm alive. I'm alive. But parts of me certainly did die. Parts of me certainly were dead. So that's what I will talk about in some form or another. And I also want to just say I'm not going to share an entire update about my life because it's a lot to cover, and I don't feel that I need to share all of the details, but I will share what's relevant to why I have been offline, and I will also share what I feel is helpful and maybe something to take with you as you watch this video. Some of you may be able to relate to some of the things that I discuss. So yes, that is that. So as I mentioned, I first stopped making YouTube videos over a year ago now, and I had just started actually getting more active on YouTube. My last video on YouTube was in June of last year. So specific to YouTube, around that time in June of last year, that was when everything in my life just took a major turn. And it wasn't totally unexpected. Not everything was not like out of nowhere, but it was more so a culmination of things over time that were all catching up to me at the same time. But most importantly, as to why I decided to take a break from social media altogether by the end of 2022 was because my father was diagnosed with late stage cancer in summer of last year. And so from the time of his diagnosis until he has since passed away earlier this year, that was a very sensitive time for me. As you may imagine, if you've lost a parent, it's a lot. It can be a lot. And one of the things I've reflected on in my experience of losing a parent, especially in a sudden way, being that he was diagnosed, and then from the time again he was diagnosed to his passing, it seemed very quick. And for those of you, again, who have dealt specifically with losing a parent or a loved one to cancer, it can be pretty vicious in that sense. And there's a lot of things that happen in between that time of going to different healthcare professionals and trying different treatments and exploring all the options that you may know of. And so there was a lot of that going on in my life and in my family. And when my dad was diagnosed, we had at first thought that there was going to be hope for him to recover. And then by, I believe it was October or November of last year, that was when the doctors made it clear that it was terminal and that they were not going to be able to provide any more treatment for him. And that was when we started to realize that we would need to set him up with hospice, and it was going to be a very difficult decision, especially for my father at the time, having to kind of accept a certain fate, which was not something that any of us were excited about. And so there's a lot of nuance in all of the things I'm discussing, and I may not get into all of that right now, but it was a very sensitive time, and I realized that that was one of the factors in my life that was allowing a lot of change to just happen naturally outside of my control. And in addition to other factors that were simultaneously influencing my life and the changes I was going through, I realized that I had to take a break from a lot of things, professionally, socially, culturally. I had to just step outside of it all and really reflect on everything you can think of. Reflect on my life, reflect on where I'm going, reflect on life itself, and also what's important. And that was one of the things I realized is at some point last year, it was a no-brainer, where the most important thing was that I was able to focus on my family and focus on my time with my father. And I live in California, and my parents were in Ohio. My family is in Ohio, most of them. So my father at the time was across the country. And so there were a lot of things that I had to really face at that time of being able to travel to see my family, making decisions about where I wanted to be if my father was going to be in a hospice for an extended period of time. And so at the time I had actually basically decided that I was going to move back to Ohio to be with my father because we didn't know how long he was going to have. And to not get into every detail of this story, essentially by the time that I had gotten back to Ohio after months of moving pieces around and planning things and changing living situations and doing all this stuff, my father passed away a week after I arrived back in Ohio. So yeah, so that was a lot. And that was earlier this year. And since then, I have just been fully sticking to my soul's guidance of focusing on the things that are most important in my life, taking care of myself, spending time with loved ones, and really just doing a whole life edit and seeing what's going to stay, what's going to go, what's going to flow into something else, and what needs to be released. So lots of stuff within that. And I just want to make a note at this point of the update to say that if you are experiencing grief in your life right now, if you have lost someone, whether it's something recent, something that was a while ago and you're still experiencing the grief of it as it goes, or you're just experiencing grief of a chapter of life, of a relationship, of whatever, I just want to say that my heart is with you. And in my own experience, I really did not understand the magnitude of grief until I experienced it myself. And not only did my father pass away, which has been kind of the major moment of experiencing grief, but what has been an interesting experience for me as well within the realm of grieving and loss and life is since 2020 until this year, I've known 10 people who I've been close to at some point of life, or who have held, a spot in my heart, or who I've just known, who have passed away, who have left this realm. And so my father was one of the last people in that series of losses, and life is life, so people will continue to leave this realm. But prior to 2020, I had not experienced loss in that way ever in my life. Not to say that I didn't experience grief prior, but that I had never experienced so many people passing. And everyone's experience with grief is so unique. Some people lose parents very young, some people lose family members at really pivotal times of their life, and other people have experiences perhaps not later into life in learning of how quick life can feel, that it goes by, and how valuable that time is with loved ones. And so all of that to say, there's been a lot of reflection just on grief itself. I've learned a lot about grief in my experience over the last couple of years, and especially this year. And one of the things that I've experienced personally with grief is that you need time to grieve. You have to experience it and feel it. At least I have had to experience it and feel it. And so I really took the time to grieve, and I was very blessed that I felt I could take the time to grieve and to honor my grief. And it's a process. I am still grieving, but I am now able to have a little bit more space in my container for other life emotions, other experiences, and of course grief can be a container for many emotions. The other thing that I have learned from grief, which may be interesting to just take with you as well, is what I have experienced as perhaps a more positive, not that it's all negative or positive anyway, but something that I've really appreciated from my experience of grief over losing someone physically, over someone passing, is now that I know so intimately what grief is and what it feels like, it's been so valuable for me to be able to identify that I have felt grief at so many other times of my life, and I didn't know that it was grief because I didn't have a traditional experience of what may be associated with grief. And so I was able to look back at chapters of my life, graduating high school, getting out of relationships, moving cities, graduating college. After I had traveled, I spent time in my early 20s traveling the world. And after I had traveled, I had a really intense experience of depression for a long time. And as I've been going through this chapter of my life right now and knowing grief and honoring it and just sitting with it, I've been able to recognize that at those previous chapters of my life, I was grieving. I was grieving a chapter that had ended. I was grieving a reality that had changed. And it is so valuable for me now to be able to witness and understand grief so that when it's there, I can say, oh, hello, my old friend, my new friend. So it's really great to be able to witness and identify the emotions that sometimes can just feel like a cloud of confusion. And I've noticed, again, at certain times in my life in the past that I perhaps identified with being sad or depressed or anxious. And oftentimes when I look back now at those experiences of those heightened emotions, it was a container for so many layered emotions that were more nuanced than I had an understanding for at the time. So that has just been a beautiful side of the experience of loss and life. And it's sure taught me a lot about life. And I may speak a bit more on this at other times, but I just wanted to wholesomely share that that was mainly the reason why I've taken time off social media. Now, speaking of the experience of life transition and grief and all of the things in that realm, going through a major life change is going to bring other inevitable changes. And that was one of the things that I realized as well over the last year, is that when one thing that's really prominent in your life changes, like losing a parent or another major experience that you may have, it's very difficult, I think, to move forward with in life and not have other things in your life alchemize as well. And sometimes those major moments, whether it's something obvious or it's something that is just a subtle energy that does feel intense, sometimes when those things happen, they're the catalyst to allow change in other areas of our lives. And so there's been a lot of things in my life where it's just changed. It is different. I feel different. And I really needed to take some time to sit with all that. I remember there were a few times over the last year or so where I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make a video. I'm gonna put something out online. I'm gonna do it. And it was just like such a clear, hard no from the universe, from my higher self, from my soul. It was like, absolutely not. And it was because I was in this in-between phase of the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. I was in the mushy gushy in-between phase where there was no substance to what I may share or say, because I was going through the learning of it. I was going through the deep integration of it. And so I'm just really happy that I've taken the time to honor all of that. And a little note there that if you are responding to this, or if you are reflecting on your own experience of this, and you might have that like voice in your life right now, that intuition that's saying, take a break from this, like it will be okay. Step away from this, it will be okay. I just want to share that my own experience of listening to that voice has been monumental and life-changing and so rewarding. I think sometimes when we hear that little voice and it says, you should change this should change, you don't have to hold on to this anymore, it can be really scary to listen to it, because especially when something's so intertwined with everything else, like for me, you know, posting online, it's like intertwined with my career and my daily life and my income and all of these things. And so when I listened to that intuition, it took a lot of courage ultimately, which is why I didn't stop posting until the end of last year on other platforms. Because by the end of last year, it was like very clear that I needed to take a break. It was very clear. And that was when other things in my life were changing too. And that's where I think the universe is so beautiful in its ability to guide us in the right direction. Sometimes we get those subtle notes of guidance, and if we can listen to that, hone in on that immediately, or relative to the timing of the first time we hear that voice, I think that's when we're really in alignment. At least that's when I feel really in alignment. But I went through a phase where I was not listening to my intuition. I was not listening to my inner guidance. And so I had to essentially be erupted. I had to have things shaken up so that I would turn it around and start listening to my guidance very clearly. So I'm going to talk a bit more about what everything that I learned over the past year. If you're interested in that, I truly can say that over the last year, I have had more personal joy and success, like personally, than I have ever had in my entire life. And that, again, is a testament to listening to that guidance, because I had been associating my well-being and my success and my joy and all those things with being online and with posting things and with being on social media. And I didn't even realize that I had been associating with that so intensely. But once I severed that attachment, it was like everything that was unfulfilling in my personal life was fulfilled, because I had space to fill it. So yes, that was the main factor that contributed to taking a break, and there were a lot of branches that came with those roots. Now, the other thing that has been a major factor in why I also took a break from social media, and this part may be interesting if you are on a similar journey. So I am now over a year sober from all substances, and I am so grateful to be able to say that. Sobriety has truly changed my life. Sobriety has changed my life. And I know a lot of people may be interested in taking a break from alcohol or just stopping the use or the frequency of a use of a certain substance. And if you are interested in something like that, again, that little voice that may be suggesting that as a path is so worth listening to. I'm not going to talk extensively about my experience with sobriety in this video. I may in the future, but I'll just say that I actually got sober before my dad was diagnosed, and it seemed to be through that experience of his cancer and of his passing that sobriety was like the rock for me. It was something that became so important for me through that experience, and that's again how the universe works. Things align and when they're supposed to. And so I had gotten sober a couple months before my dad was diagnosed, and so it was a really powerful experience for me to have that sobriety through the experience of his passing. And then speaking on sobriety itself, so again, I won't speak in depth about it in this video, but I reached a point in my life where I didn't think that I perhaps had a substance problem or that it was a real issue in my life, but I reached a point in my life where it was so obvious that substance use was the biggest block in my life. It was keeping me from doing inner work that I needed to do. It was keeping me from facing my shadows. It was keeping me from feeling emotions. It was keeping me from experiencing joy. It was keeping me from having an experience of life where I could fully sense and feel things again. It had become a numbing agent for me. And specifically for me, I definitely was drinking, but the factor that was most important for me was actually stepping away from marijuana use, from smoking the weed. Now, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed that for a very long time in my life, but I reached a point where it was very clear that I needed to give it up. And, you know, to be honest, I definitely knew that years prior as well. And that's again where we get that little voice of intuition that's like, you should probably put the joint down. You should probably step away from that. Like, I promise life's gonna be better if you let this go. But if you experience attachment to those things that can bring us comfort at certain times of our life, that attachment can be really hard to break. And there's so many different facets to this. There's so much nuance to this. If you are someone who is suffering with addiction, I definitely recommend, you know, seeking guidance, seeking help, because we don't want to get to that point of a cliff where we fall off of it, where the road is not there anymore, where there's only a rock bottom beneath us. And sometimes we need that rock bottom. But not everyone is fortunate enough to make it out of those rock bottoms and to break free of addiction. And there's such a scale of severity when it comes to addiction. And again, I might speak more on my own experience with this, but there's just been a lot of confrontation with my own relationship to substance. And I'm very grateful that I have been able to make that transition in my life to trust that there's life beyond substance use. And for those of you who may be more casually interested in sobriety or being alcohol-free, I have now reached a point where I experience like this much joy and this much sensation and this much elation of life, where prior I was experiencing this level with substance use. So I may have used substance so I could get this feeling or block this feeling or experience something in a more heightened way, as substance is culturally recommended for in that sense. And by choosing sobriety, I've now reached this point where it's like there's no cap on the sensation, because I'm not numbing anything. I'm not changing my body chemistry through, or my neuroplasticity through substance use. Instead, I'm allowing sobriety to be the rhythm of my mind and my body, and it allows me to connect with my environment a lot more. So yeah, it's a journey. I'm still on it. I'm not an expert in sobriety. I am just sharing that For me, this has been a life changer and highly recommended. And yes, that is also why I needed to take a break from social media. I needed to take a break so that I could focus on myself. And that is the summary that I would give for all of this, is that the main reason that I had taken a break from social media is because I needed to focus on myself and on my life. And I needed to do the real things that matter in life, like take care of my health, focus on my relationships, build a foundation for my life. Just get off of my phone, get off of the damn phone. So that has been really rewarding, but it also was not easy. Like, there are a lot of things to talk about when it comes to addictions in our society, attachments in our society, and social media is certainly one of those. And taking a break from social media for me has just shown me how it is connected to all of these other things and how it's connected to all of these other attachments. And if you think about it, like, we are most of us sit on our phone the majority of the day, whether we're communicating with someone, we're listening to music, we're getting directions somewhere, we're posting something, we're consuming something, whatever it is, our phone has become a primary resource for everything. And especially when we are living in more isolated societies, you need your phone in order to connect. And so there's a lot of things I can talk about with that. But in my experience over the last year, it's just taking a break from using my phone so much, taking a break from being on the apps has really helped me to just center back into what's important. Spend time in nature, eat good food, breathe, just breathe. My sleep has improved. My health has improved. I am Superwoman now. Not really, but there's a lot of things that have really improved, so I'm very grateful for it. Sometimes I think we can lose track of what is actually a priority. And so that was the main experience that I have had from my break on social media, is just really getting clear on what is actually a priority, what I really value, and learning how to honor those values above anything I see on social media, anything anyone else is telling me that I need to care about, and just learning to focus in and hone in on my own intuition, knowing what's best for me. If someone else tells me I should eat something and my body is like, absolutely not, I'm not gonna eat it. If someone else tells me I should prioritize something and my soul is like, absolutely not, I'm done prioritizing those things. But I had to go through an experience where I really lost touch with that. I really lost touch with what's important. I didn't listen to my intuition. I didn't listen to it when it came to relationships. I didn't listen to it when it came to social settings. I didn't listen to it when it came to my living environment. I didn't listen to it when it came to financial decisions. It was like everything in my life just needed a halt. It needed me to reassess and readdress what it means to have a spiritual connection and a soul connection. And that's going to mean something different for everyone. And that's probably the most important thing I can emphasize, is that your spiritual connection is your connection with your soul. It's your connection with your higher self. It's your connection with your God. It's not going to be the same for everyone. And I think when we're in a society where we want to just place things into these categories or find this like fix-it-all situation that is going to give you the solution to your life, and when we're looking for that, when we're looking to be saved, when we're looking for other things outside of us to give us the answers, it's a vicious cycle, because it's going to completely keep you reliant on looking for things outside of yourself. But when you can step back into your inner wisdom, your inner vision, your inner knowing, your intuition, that's when, in my experience, life really starts to move forward. Life really starts to flow. That is just my experience, and I hope it can help someone, because truly, if you have that voice of intuition and wisdom that is trying to come through right now, and it's like, hey, maybe take a break from this. Try and step away from this. Maybe go in this direction. It's so worth listening to. And I'm still practicing this. It's not easy. I find myself all the time, at least a couple times a day, still checking in with myself, having to check in with myself and think, am I listening to my body? Am I listening to my intuition? Am I spending too much time on my phone? So it's an ongoing process. And I think in the society we live in right now, collectively, there's a lot of reliance again on technology, and it's important that we find those rhythms and routines for ourselves. And it's not always going to be accessible. And sometimes we have to go through a period of inaccessibility as we're working toward more accessibility, whether that means you're saving up for something, you're saving up to see a specific health person, someone that's going to help you with something, saving up for a therapist, saving up for a coach, whatever it is. Or, you know, just saving up time for yourself to spend time with your inner guidance, as I mentioned. So whatever it is, sometimes we need those check-ins to be able to say, am I listening to my inner guidance? Am I doing what's best for me? And even if it's not available or accessible right away, like having time to yourself, being in a meditative state, feeling that you're at a place with your mental health where you can actually check in reasonably. There's a lot of value in knowing that things can change, that nothing is fixed, it's not set in stone, you can change, you can break free from that pattern, you can move forward in your life in a new direction. Just want to give that testament to say that sometimes taking a break from the thing that you think is bringing you your joy is actually what's going to fill in all the blanks of your life. And the last thing I wanted to say is one of the major factors as well for me that I am just like living by now is nervous system regulation. I had actually shared something in my Patreon last year around the Mars-Uranus conjunction and talking about how I foresaw that the nervous system conversation, the conversation around the nervous system was going to become a lot more important and relevant, and especially as the increasing use of technology was occurring. And so that is something that I am like living by now is my nervous system regulated? Is my nervous system regulated? So I prioritize that over anything. The phones that we have do not support a regulated nervous system. Social media, as it is right now, does not support a regulated nervous system. Like systematically, fundamentally, the way that it is designed is not to give you like a healthy body and mind. It is to keep you addicted to it. And so if you like, again, are spending time on your phone, you're like, why do I feel so bad? Like, what's going on? It might be your phone. It might be social media. So just keeping in mind, like I've had to really remind myself that social media is built for consumption. It is built for consumption. And there's a lot of benefits to the creation side of social media. Here I am making a video, right? But there's also a lot of downsides, and we have to be able to sit with that nuance of both and this is actually one of the things that for me, I was like, I don't even know if I want to be on social media. And that was another factor where I genuinely didn't know if I wanted to come back onto social media. And that's because I realized how much healthier I felt without it. But this is where I've now come to a realization, stepping away from extremism of anything, that there is a space for the balance. There is a possibility, at least I believe that at this time, I'm going to explore what that looks like. Meaning that at this time in space, and this perhaps can go into kind of the end of my update here, at this time I'm practicing what it feels like to have a healthy relationship on social media. And when it comes to creating content and how you may see me online, I'll just say that I am no longer subscribing to any set way of how a content creator should be, of how content should be created. And I'm not saying that anyone has ever made me do that, but I found myself thinking that I had to do things in a certain way, to do XYZ. And that has been so inauthentic to who I am now that I've had a lot of these realizations. And so when it comes to creating content at this stage of my life, I'm exploring it. I'm going to explore new things, but I am not set in stone with any specific way of doing anything right now. So I'm going to just see what feels good for me, see what I can help others with, see what feels fun and exciting and brings me joy, because I also believe in the resonance of energy and the transference of energy, meaning that if I'm in my joy and if I'm doing something that makes me feel healthy and satisfied and fulfilled and authentic, I pray and believe that that will be what is received on the other end in some capacity. And so on the other end of that, if I am not balanced in my life, if I'm not healthy, if I'm not taking care of myself, that's also what will be received on the other end of the video, of whatever I'm putting out. So I really believe that. I've experienced that now. That may not feel true for everyone, but that is how I am choosing to operate at this time. So just know that I'm not making any promises right now about my consistency online. I may take breaks again. I may take another stop. What I've learned over the last year is that it's really important to have that time for resting and reflection. Just like the seasons change, there's a time of growth, there's a time of planting seeds, there's a time of things dying off. And this is very timely for as we are entering fall now, as in September, in the Northern Hemisphere. So there's a change of season in all of our lives, quite literally, but there's also a change that you may experience in your own life, and it's important to listen to what season you're in. And so that is my own experience, is that I'm listening to the seasons I'm in, I'm listening to my body and my intuition, and that's what's gonna guide me. So we'll see where that goes. Last thing I want to say as well, and these are just some thoughts on social media culture and the experience that I have being a content creator. Experience that has shown me what it may feel like to be on the opposite end of that, where you're consuming someone's content versus creating the content. I've experienced that the way that we view like social media creators, even celebrities and public figures in our society is really not healthy. And there's a lot of worship culture that puts people on these pedestals of perfectionism, and they're always gonna fall off of that. And I'm not talking about accountability. We all have to take accountability in our lives, and often people do not. But I've just come to observe in my own belief at this time, which may change, that this worship culture of putting people on pedestals and thinking that they're like superhuman because they have a following, because they have a brand, because they have a company, because they have a net worth, because whatever. When we're putting people on those pedestals, they're gonna fall. And if we associate our identity with how we place them on a pedestal, we're gonna fall. And those are just some thoughts that I've been observing, but I share that just to say as well that I'm really actively stepping away from this idea of worshiping anything, anyone outside of myself, perhaps besides the seasons, the cycles, and God, and the higher realms that we experience in our life, and the lower realms that we experience in our life. The life and the death, they're both beautiful. So that's something I'm just practicing right now, is thinking like, where am I putting judgment onto others for them to be perfect? Because that is not feeling good for me anymore, and it's easy to fall into. And so I'm just practicing that in my own life. And I also just want to say that to share some very important news with you all, that it may be mind-blowing. It may let some of you down. But I'm a human. I know. I'm also not perfect. So I actually figured that out recently, that I'm not perfect. So yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know that. I'm human, I'm not perfect. I'm gonna make mistakes, probably a lot of them. I'm gonna say the wrong thing at one time. I'm gonna say the wrong word at another time. I'm gonna have an idea that evolves later in time. I'm gonna have a belief that changes. My identity will change. I may look different. I may speak differently. I may try something else. Because as a human, we are evolving. I am changing. And it's not like from bad to good. It's not from good to bad. It's just, it is. It's the cycle. It's the season. And so I just share that to say as well that I've been working on a lot of perfectionism in my own life, letting go of criticism and also of praise, practicing what it feels like to just be. What a profound idea, just to be. So that's what I've been being. Yeah, and I invite you all to just be too. It's really freaking hard sometimes. It's really frustrating to feel that we have to live up to standards, and we put ourselves against those standards, and we put other people against those standards. And it's not about not having values. It's not about not having integrity. It's not about not having accountability or taking responsibility. Those are all things that I think we have to learn individually. And sometimes we need other people to give us a heads up and to have a check-in to say, hey, maybe you're not taking accountability here. Hey, I see this happening and I want what's best for you, so I'm gonna let you know that I'm seeing what's happening here and this is my observation. I think there's a need for healthy conflict management, healthy communication, healthy disagreement. And in that need, I think we can find space for releasing perfectionism and releasing the expectation of perfection in our experience of social media use, of culture, of celebrity worship, of all those things. So those were some thoughts, those were some opinions. You don't have to agree with any of them. you don't really even have to think much about them. But that's what I wanted to share, because all of that I just shared has been the themes in my life over the last year and a half. And I share all that now because as I'm coming back online, those are really important to point out as cornerstones of this chapter of my life. So yes, in summary, life is really intense sometimes, and sometimes we need to just ride that wave of intensity, take a break when we need to, allow the thing in our life to change or evolve, and allow ourselves to change and evolve. So yes, I will be changing, I will be shifting, and I hope you do too. Let's do it together. Okay, so that's that, and that is my update. And again, just to kind of put a cherry on top of all that, I just wanted to say that right now I'm still in a phase of evolution in my own life. Things are still changing. I don't have any set parameters for how I may do something in the future right now. I'm still exploring different ideas, beliefs, integrations. I'm learning a lot right now, studying a lot of different things, and that will likely become a part of who I am, how I introduce things. I really am practicing what it feels like to just be myself as a full person and not putting myself in a pigeonhole of anything specifically. And so with that said, as much as I absolutely, truly love and find so much value in astrology, which may not always be the tip of the iceberg that is the pop culture astrology, which I've partaken in a lot of with, but astrology itself as a practice, as a tool, as a resource is so valuable, and it has been so valuable for me. And so I do plan to continue sharing that with you all. At the same time, I also just want to add that I'm going to experiment with letting more of my humanity, my human self, into the content that I create. So again, don't know what that might look like right now, but excited to see where it goes. Okay, so now I want to start talking about the transits that we have experienced this year. This is where I'm going to get into doing some specific sign readings and just getting a bit of an update for the astrology of 2023. And for those of you watching, if you're watching this, well, you're watching this. So hopefully all of you have had resources and experiences of the astrology yourself, and you found other great astrologers to watch or follow, or you've just learned more about it yourself, or whatever that may be, or you've checked out of it, whatever it is. I hope that the astrology thus far in this year has brought shifts and changes and cycles for you all, or if you've needed stillness and patience and the opposite yin side of that, I hope it's brought you that as well. So that said, this year has been quite a lot astrologically. This is one of the, I feel like astrologers, we say this every year, but 2023 has come with a lot of major transits because we've had planets shifting signs, planets that don't shift signs every year. And so there's a lot to talk about with that. As far as this update goes, I'm just going to talk about the major transits that we've had this year, and then I'm going to get right into doing the readings for each zodiac sign. So if you want to go ahead and fast forward to that part, you can do that. And within the readings, I'm just going to talk about what has been going on so far in 2023, what may be present for you right now as we've just gotten out of Venus retrograde, which was a doozy, I'm sure, for a lot of people, but also perhaps a very beautiful evolution of the things that are related to Venus: love, money, values, aesthetics, inner knowing, all of the things. So that's something I'm going to talk about as well. And then I'll also share what you have to look forward to for the remainder of 2023. And again, I want to share that if you are interested in having a one-on-one reading with me, my readings are now open after a year of having them closed. So if you would like to book a reading with me, you can do so on my website. All of the reading availability right now will stay open until those slots are booked. I may open more spots in the future, but that is not decided right now. So if you do want to have a reading, I definitely encourage you to book one with me, and I look forward to it. In an astrology reading, we can talk about a lot of different things. We can check in with 2023 personally for you, as that's the best way to understand your astrology. We can also look at what may be coming in 2024. And we can get into more specific things as well, such as your solar return, your birthday, anything that may be going on with your perfections, anything that may be going on with a moving situation, such as looking at your astrocartography or casting a chart for a specific time or location. So many things that we can look at. So I definitely encourage you to book a reading with me if you would like to. Okay, so talking about the transits that we have had going on this year, how y'all doing? How you doing? I hope great. I hope we're all great. And sometimes we're not. That said, we've had a lot going on this year. So specifically since March of 2023, there have been so many shifts in the planets and the energy that comes with it. And one of the things I want to say with changes in planetary motion or sign changes is that sometimes we can think that a transit is going to be this main event or this big thing that happens, but often it's just a very subtle energy shift that creates a ripple effect in the patterns of your life, in the cycles of your life, in how you show up. You might lean into certain parts of yourself at a certain chapter of your life, and after or during planetary transits, you may lean into other parts of yourself during that chapter. You may look back at a point of your life right now and recognize that you showed up in a very different way at that time of your life. And you may be able to see that there were planetary alignments that were happening at that time that you can point to, perhaps even exact or simultaneous to when you may have experienced a shift in how you were showing up. So that is the way that I invite you to really look at the planetary transits. Sometimes they do come with really major events, especially when looking at our personal astrology. And I'll just share this as an example and also kind of a testament to truly how accurate astrology, the practice of it is. So the day that my father passed away was exactly when Saturn was on my natal Venus, and I am in a Venus perfection year, which means that Venus is my time lord, which means that Venus is going to be the storyteller of everything that was going to happen this year. And right after my birthday, so right after I had entered that year, about a month later, when Saturn was exactly conjunct where Venus was when I was born in the same degree, that was when my father passed. And it was almost simultaneous to Saturn entering that degree. And so Saturn deals with the father in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of associations with that. And so that was just one of those transits that I was like, okay, got it. Astrology is real. That's an example of where sometimes the transit is a specific event. It's something that you can point to and say, oh wow, that was it. That was the transit. But other times it's subtle. It's not something that's obvious right away. For instance, we just went through this major Venus retrograde, and some people may have had very obvious experiences that you can point to and say, oh, it was a breakup, or oh, I got back together with this person, or oh, I moved, or I changed my income stream, or I just had a major experience that was very associated with Venus, and it can be something even subtle like getting rid of your clothing, or changing your wardrobe, or changing your hair, or doing all of those things that may not always be recommended during Venus retrograde, but can definitely happen. But if it's not a major event, sometimes it is just that subtle energy where you can look back to the beginning of Venus retrograde, or perhaps when shadow started on June 19th, and you can think about now that we're coming out of it, still have shadow to go, but we're out of the exact retrograde cycle now. And you may be able to witness how something in you has changed, has shifted. Maybe there's specific themes that have evolved. And so that's just to say that sometimes transits can be very obvious and direct and exact. Other times they are very subtle. So that said, we've had a lot of major transits this year, starting with Pluto entering Aquarius back in March. Now, you can also say that the most important event at the beginning of the year was getting out of Mars retrograde, which we ended officially in January, but that continued to have some themes for the first few months of this year. But when Pluto entered Aquarius in March, that was a major transit because Pluto is a slow-moving planet and it does not move signs very often. The second major transit we had also in March, which was at the beginning of March, was Saturn entering Pisces. Saturn also moves signs less frequently than our faster moving planets. So that was a major transit as well. Saturn is now in Pisces. Get ready for your Saturn return, Pisces babies. Yeah, it's coming. Some of you may be in your Saturn return now that Saturn is in Pisces if you have Saturn at the first 10 or so degrees of Pisces. That said, both of those planets are now retrograde, and I won't talk too much about that in this video, but the themes that may have been present from the end of last year until the beginning of this year may still be in a kind of waiting period for some people as we are waiting for those things to shift on a more fundamental level through those retrogrades. Pluto is now back in Capricorn as well, but it will re-enter Aquarius at the beginning of next year. The other major transit we had was Jupiter entering Taurus in May, and then we also had Jupiter conjunct the North Node exactly at the end of May going into June. So that may have been a lucky time for some of you, especially if you are in Earth placement, if you're a Taurus placement, but you can just look to where Taurus is in your chart and see where you may have had a major growth experience, a lot of luck, but sometimes when those are simultaneous, it may not always be as obvious until you're looking back at it. And then in July, we had the nodes shift into Aries and Libra. So this has been a major shift as well because they were in Taurus and Scorpio in our eclipse seasons for the past year and a half. And so they are now in Aries and Libra. I'm going to talk about this more extensively, likely in another video because we have eclipse season coming up, and that is going to really bring awareness to the Aries and Libra portions of your chart with those upcoming eclipses. And speaking of eclipses, we also, of course, closed out the eclipse season earlier this year at the end of April into May. So there was a lot going on in the first half of this year. And coming now into September, we just completed Venus retrograde. So Venus went retrograde on July 22nd, and it went direct on September 3rd. But we are still experiencing the aftermath of the retrograde until October. That said, now is a great time to really reflect on what those themes have been, how everything comes together. Venus does not go retrograde every year. So when it does go retrograde, it's a really great time to look at what it is shifting in your life, what it's asking you to pay attention to, or what is just naturally evolving on its own. And on September 4th, we had Jupiter go retrograde. So Venus got out of its retrograde and Jupiter took its spot. It's like, I'll take it. I'll go retrograde, fine. So that's what we're dealing with. A lot of people I've heard are like, oh my gosh, we have all these planets in retrograde. Yeah, we do, but also like every year we have a lot of planets in retrograde. There's just different cycles. Sometimes we have a Mars retrograde in a year. Sometimes we have a Venus retrograde in a year. We always have Mercury retrogrades, and the outer planets almost always are going retrograde. So just know that if you hear that there's a lot of retrogrades going on, it doesn't mean that like the world's ending, or else it would be ending every year. That said, when we're thinking about the last half of this year now, or the last quarter of this year, we really only have planets going direct, because now that Jupiter is retrograde and Uranus also recently went retrograde at the end of August, the rest of this year is just sitting in those retrogrades. And then almost all of the planets are going to be going direct towards the end of this year, from November into December, and then spilling into 2024 as well. We do have one more Mercury retrograde starting December 12th at the end of this year. But aside from that, we are just soaking in all the retrograde energy. And this is why the end of this year is a great time to kind of like collect all the pieces of your experience so far this year. Pick up the pieces of anything that's felt really major. A lot of the major movements and motion of things is coming a bit to a resting spot right now. So you may experience some things still for the rest of this year, but it's more likely that you are going to have a chance to reflect and to rest and to just kind of sit with things that have already happened. Especially as the planets do go direct over the next few months. We have Saturn going direct, and then Neptune will also be going direct. Jupiter will go direct at the end of this year. So there'll be an opportunity to really sit with those energies and see how those show up in their direct motion as well. Okay, so now I'm going to get into the readings for each zodiac sign. Again, this is going to be for a check-in of the energy right now, maybe touching on things that have happened already this year and giving you an idea of what you can expect for this last quarter of 2023. So you can skip to your zodiac sign. I recommend watching first for your rising sign, as this will be the most accurate for your chart. But I love having a full experience of the sun, moon, and rising. And if you really want to get into it, you can also look at your chart ruler and watch for that as well. And just a note, this is not a personal reading, so only take what resonates. This is going to be collective for the energy of each sign. That said, you may receive some specific messages for you, since we are sharing an exchange right now as you are watching the video, and I am creating it for those who are watching it. Furthermore, if you again would like to have a more personal reading for your specific birth chart or transit chart, definitely book a reading with me, as they are open right now, and you can use the code YouTube for an additional discount. So for these readings, I am going to just share a quick update about what you might be experiencing in your life. I will also open with an oracle card using the Moonology deck, so there may be a message for you specific to that as well. Okay, starting with the zodiac order, Aries, you're up first. Aries placements, how are you doing? You hanging in there? It's quite a year for you all, and I'm sure you've been hearing that for a couple of years now, given that Jupiter was in your sign from 2022 until the very beginning of this year. Jupiter is now out of your sign, but we have the North Node in your sign. It is truly your time. And a lot of you may be feeling that energy, especially since April of this year. You may have noticed a lot of major shifts in your life. What happens when we have the nodes shifting a sign is that when they're first in that sign, in the new signs that they're in, because there's always going to be the opposite side. So we have the South Node in Libra right now. When they're first moving into those signs, that's when things tend to start getting uprooted. Things are shifting because there's more changes to come with the eclipses that will occur in those signs. And so the North Node is now in Aries and the South Node is in Libra. So Aries placements, you may be experiencing a lot of changes just from that alone. With the North Node in your sign, there's an emphasis on focusing on yourself, on focusing on who you are and what your life path is. With the South Node in Libra, this may mean that you are stepping away from certain relationships in your life or certain relationship dynamics. If that is what you have been going through, that is very normal per the transits right now. And that said, we do have eclipse season coming up at the end of September, going into October. This is going to be the first real taste that we get. Arguably, you can again have had an experience in April that was going to give you a hint of what's to come in essence, or what the theme would be, but nothing to fear on that end if it was a crazy time for you. That said, we are going to have the turning of a page occurring now with this eclipse season. This is going to really close out the energy of the eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio, but it's also going to really open the eclipse cycles that we will experience with Aries and Libra. So if you have something big coming up, that could be what the theme is. And if you're not sure what it is, no need to fear. It is likely just going to be an experience that provides you opportunities in order to shift something in your life. Eclipses are really about stripping things away and creating space for evolution and changes within yourself and within specifically your relationships for you guys, Aries. That said, I also want to share the card that I pulled for you, which is the Luck is on Your Side card. And this just seems so kismetly aligned, given that the North Node is in your sign. And I think this is a testament as well to say that just because the eclipses are happening in your chart, in your sign, does not mean that you have to fear anything. In fact, luck is literally on your side. When the North Node is in your sign, it's a really great opportunity to take a leap on something, to try something new, to put yourself out there. If you have a story that's going on saying, oh, I've never done this before, so why would I do it? Of course, you're Aries placements, so step into the Aries energy and take a risk. But even if you are not usually someone who wants to take those risks or who wants to try something new, or if perhaps you've gone through a series or a period of time in your life or that hasn't been the way that you're approaching things, this is your sign to take a risk on yourself, take a chance on yourself. And this may mean showing up in a different way, making a big decision, or it can just mean having more confidence, having more self-assurance, trusting yourself more, and bringing that into your relationship dynamics as well when the opportunity presents itself. This is also the new moon in Sagittarius, and we will have a new moon in Sagittarius later this year during Sagittarius season. And so this may be a sign as well that during that time, there may be an opportunity for you all. And that new moon will be on December 12th. So you may have something come up in December that is really an opportunity to grow into something. Now, I will say that that is the same day that we have Mercury going retrograde again in our last retrograde cycle at the end of this year. So sometimes the opportunities that provide us the most experience for growth are not the ones that we choose or that we would select if we're given a lineup. But sometimes we have to go through those experiences. So if you do go through an experience and it's like, this is what is presented to you at the time in December, or perhaps from now until then through eclipse season, just know that this is a major time of growth. And so if there's a question around if something is supposed to be happening, why something isn't happening, perhaps the situation you're in is exactly as it's supposed to be or as it is supposed to change or evolve. So yes, that is my message for you all, Aries. And the last thing I will say for you, Aries placements, is this year so far has likely had a lot to do with inevitable changes in your career, in the way that you want to present yourself, perhaps finding more maturity in certain areas of your life that may feel public at times, but also needing a lot of time to yourself, needing a lot of time to reflect and to go inward. And that is because Pluto has been flirting with your 10th and 11th houses. And that deals a lot with what you're doing and the work you're doing and how you're being recognized or not recognized for it. So there may be some inevitable changes when it relates to that. Some of you may feel like you've completed a cycle or an achievement in your career and it's time to move on to something else. And again, this is your sign that this is the time perhaps to do that. And this also has to do with Saturn now being in your 12th house. And so Saturn is in a very sensitive part of your chart. Saturn is about discipline, responsibility, and can be very connected to life lessons. So a lot of you may be going through some lessons in private that are not that public, but there may be a bit of pressure on you to make what feels to be more public decisions. That said, as a reminder, the North Node is in your sign. So if you are brewing up a change in your life, wanting to change directions, change careers, make a big leap into something else, even if you've never done it before, luck is on your side. So I'm wishing you all the best and enjoy the rest of your 2023. I may have more readings on here, so definitely check back. And again, if you would like to have a personal reading with me, you can book one on my website. Hello, Taurus placements. Nice to see you again for those of you watching. Welcome to 2023. Oh wait, we've been in 2023. Welcome to the end of 2023. I hope you've all had a great year so far. I'd like to start off your reading by pulling a card, which I have already done. And this is going to just be a message on top of the other things that I will say. You guys have had a lot going on, and I'm sure you've heard that endlessly for the past couple of years. Opposite to Aries, you all are now experiencing the shift of Jupiter in your sign and the nodes now being out of your sign. So there's certainly a lot of transits that are likely affecting Taurus placements, and you may feel that, you may know that, and hopefully a lot of you have had a lot of growth and positive experiences surrounding these transits, and growth doesn't always come from positive experiences. So that said, the card that was pulled for you is the Void of Course Moon. And this is saying nothing will come of this situation. So what's interesting about this card is that it's representing a very specific time of the moon's cycle. The void, of course, is essentially a time where there's nothing to be done, there's nothing going on, and often when we are thinking about casting a chart or electing a time, you want to avoid, of course, because avoid the void, because This tends to be a time where it's just meant for nothingness. It's just meant to exist. It's not necessarily a time when you're meant to create something. You may have ideas come through. You may have realizations come through. There may be events that happen. But the message that can come with this is that an event that's happened is not necessarily going to lead to something else, which can be a relief if something has happened recently in your life and you're wondering if it's going to cause ripple effects that perhaps are not ideal. If something is affecting you right now that you may think is going to continue to affect you, this would be a message that you don't have to worry about it. It's going to pass. It may not be something that you even remember a month from now. That said, the other message with this is saying that there may be something going on in your life right now that you're focusing on that perhaps isn't the primary focus that may be the most rewarding for you. If there's something that you have been really trying to hammer in or go deep into, but it's not really bringing you much clarity, it's not bringing you much progression in your life, this may be a message that it could be a good time to just step away so you can see clearly outside of it. Taurus is a fixed sign, so they like to really focus in on things, but this may be an opportunity to just take a break from something so you can see it clearly. It's like having a vacation away from your normal life, your everyday life, and having an experience where you see something in a totally different way because you've taken a break, because you're not in the cycle of it at that moment. So yeah, a few different messages that may be related to this. And that said, looking at the actual astrology for you all, there are a lot of planetary movements that indicate, similar actually to this card, that some of you may just be going through a resting period of your life. It doesn't mean that there's no action, it doesn't mean that there's nothing happening, but it could be that a lot of things happened over the last couple of years, over X amount of time, and now you're at a phase where it's more important to just reflect on things that have happened, to just tune into what's right in front of you. And this has a lot to do with the fact that the nodes have now shifted into your 12th and your 6th houses. The 12th and the 6th houses are houses that are not obvious to the ascendant, which means that non-obvious things or subtle things tend to be revolving around these houses. This may mean that there's something under the surface of your life and perhaps you feel like you can't quite grasp it, or it's not tangible or obvious, but you feel it. Another example of this is something that just has to do with your daily routine, having to focus on your health right now, having to focus on something that maybe isn't as glamorous or that isn't really worth talking about too much, but that you are very much focused on, perhaps like your sleep cycles or just getting enough nutrition, which is something we all have got to work on with the state of the food these days. So there's just a lot that you may be focused on right now that is not super expansive in a traditional sense, but that is equally as important. A lot of you may have started something like over a year ago, over 2 years ago, or even earlier this year, prior to July perhaps, that you are now being asked to continue the cycle of what you started. And in the middle of that, again, it may not be like a big moment of anything, but it's really important because it's helping you to complete something, to move forward with something. As an example, let's say that you started a new job. And when you started this job, or you took a new role on in a job, and when you started this job, maybe there was like fireworks. It was like, it's the job of all jobs, if that exists. It's everything and anything. And perhaps it was really exciting. Well, now you may be just showing up to work and there may be a sense of like, oh, maybe this isn't that fun, or, oh, right, everyday life, like everyday reality, like get up and drink water and eat breakfast and then go to work and then get home. And so there may be a sense of things being a bit more mundane. And you may also be finding that your routine specifically is becoming something that you would like to shift or change. As another example, let's say that you've taken on a new responsibility in your life. Perhaps you've started a family, or you're in a new relationship, or there's a shift in change in your family or relationship, and there's not as much time to yourself anymore for what reason. This may be an opportunity with the South Node now in your 6th house to let go of a previous routine that worked for you then, but that is not working for you anymore. And so there's an opportunity right now to just focus on changing your routine, trying something new, doing something a bit different. A lot of you may also specifically need to focus on your sleep right now, your sleep schedule. Sleep is like so important, so necessary. But when we have a lot going on, when there's a lot of stress or anxiety or whatever it may be, it doesn't always take priority. That said, with the North Node in your 12th house now, for the next year or so, there is going to be a priority on your health, your sleep, your subconscious health, and all of those things. Jupiter was here prior, so a lot of you may have already danced with this energy over the last year, and now it may just be needing to take priority in your life. So for instance, if you knew that there was something going on with your health that needed to have your attention, but let's say you didn't have the bandwidth to focus on that, this year you may be given the opportunity going into 2024 to really start focusing on that specific thing, on your health, or just on your overall well-being. So yes, Taurus, that is likely what is taking a priority in your life right now. And that said, the last message that I'll share with you is that Jupiter is in your sign. So whatever you have started, it is reaping rewards. There is fruit to be experienced and to be had from the seeds that you have planted. So if you're in a phase of your life as well where you're wondering if something is going to pay off, if you don't see anything, again, kind of void of course, it's like you're not seeing what's happening. It's not evident, it's not obvious, but it doesn't make it less important. So if you're putting work into something, putting effort into something, or just putting energy into an intention that you have, wanting to feel a shift in your life, but you're not sure if it's happening, two messages with that. One may be if you take a step away from the thing you're focused on, you may see that it's already happening, it's right in front of you, it's right here. And the other thing is that perhaps those results are not evident yet, but they will be. And the work or the effort or the energy or the presence, the beingness that you're putting into it right now is just as important. Okay, actually the last message I'll say is that we also are just getting out of this Venus retrograde. Venus is the ruler of Taurus, so a lot of you may have had changes in your home life, your family life, where you're living, in relationships. And because it's in the lower half of your chart for Taurus risings, this is dealing with your personal matters, personal life, your home setting. So again, this is a great time to just take reflection on the things that have happened in your life. Some of you may need to tap into a more emotional reality for a while, or perhaps you've done that, and that will likely have to do with processing some emotions that could be old or could be new, but they are certainly there for a lot of you, I'm sure. So that is an opportunity as we're getting out of this Venus retrograde to just take some time processing emotions. Sometimes we don't prioritize that. It's like, oh, this emotion is so inconvenient. Can you just not? But we have to prioritize that, because once it's processed, then we are free in a lot of ways. I like that saying that if something is hysterical, it's probably historical. So if something feels like a really big thing in your life right now, it may just be pointing to an earlier experience that would like to be completed or processed. Okay, Taurus, well, thank you for checking in. If you'd like to have a personal reading with me, you can book one on my website. And I hope to see you again soon. Geminis, I hope you have enjoyed your year so far, and welcome to the end of the year. I'd like to start your reading here by sharing a card that I have pulled for you, randomly, of course. And this card is probably the best random card you can get, which is Prosperity Lies Ahead, and it's representing the new moon in Taurus. So the moon is exalted in Taurus. A new moon can be very prosperous, and it makes sense that this would be the message for you all. Now in your life right now, there may be an obvious experience that you're having where you're like, great, yes, I know what that is. And some of you may also be like, are you sure? Are you sure? Because where is it? So whatever that message is for you, I'll talk about how this may relate to the transits that are going on. So some of the big changes that we've had this year for Gemini is that Saturn is now in your 10th house. So Saturn is now at the top of your chart, and this may be pretty pretty intense for some of you, just because when we have Saturn at the top of our chart, and especially in the 10th house, it's really emphasizing the Saturn association with responsibility. Saturn is about the discipline that we put into something and the structure that we need in order for things to come together. And sometimes when we have Saturn transits, it just slaps us with some more responsibility around something, more commitment to something. But it also gives us an opportunity to step into our own authority and autonomy. And that's where a lot of you may be having that experience specifically with your career path. The message that I'm feeling for a lot of you Gemini placements is that you may be in a career right now where perhaps you've been in it for a while, perhaps you've been in a certain kind of career for a while, or a certain phase or level of income or something that feels like it's gone on for a while. So Saturn is now asking you to step into more autonomy with your career path. And this is emphasized by the fact that the North Node is now in your 11th house. So the nodes have just shifted to your 11th and to your 5th house. So with the North Node in your 11th house transiting this for the next year or so, this is giving you an opportunity to really gain recognition for the kind of things that you want to create in the world. Now, I'm not here to promise you that you're going to try something and it's going to be super successful right away, but the beauty of 11th house transits is that it is bringing you rewards for your work over time, and Saturn loves time. So if there's something that you're working on right now and you're wanting to know if it's going to lead you somewhere in the future, there may be an emphasis on Saturn right now asking you to get clear on your path and to really identify what it is that you want to experience from the things that you are putting effort into. For instance, as an example, let's say that you are a musician or you're interested in being a musician. Maybe this is a time of your life where you've practiced music really casually for a long time, or you've even given it a go at trying to be more professional in your career with music. There's an opportunity right now to look at your skill sets and to understand that you have acquired certain skill sets through the practice of music over time. And maybe the skill sets that you don't have right now are learning how to do that professionally. And so there might be an opportunity to take on more responsibility as it relates to using music in your career, but it may mean that you have to acquire some new experience or skill sets that haven't quite come together yet. Another example of that would be, let's say that you want to pursue music, it's always been a passion, but you maybe don't have all of the musical experience. Maybe you don't know how to play certain instruments and you'd like to learn. This is also a great time to practice learning those skills and knowing that it may show up in your professional life later. Now, I also want to add the note here that just because you're passionate about music, it doesn't mean it has to be your end-all be-all career. And some of you may also be seeing where the work that you're putting into how you make money and how you sustain yourself, how you create a foundation for yourself, is paying off because it's giving you freedom in other areas of your life to explore new things, such as, let's say you work a job that is pretty strictly for making the money that you need to live and to enjoy life. And let's say that now you've worked long enough and you have some savings and you'd like to invest in a new hobby. That hobby may be something that over the course of the next so many years, specifically I would say until 2026 or 2027, that's when the nodes will go over the area where Saturn is entering right now. So there may be a chapter of your life from now until then that the things you're learning or starting or trying are going to start really showing up in different ways and providing new opportunities over the next however many years for you. So that said, the message I would really give you Geminis altogether with that is that there is an opportunity in your life that will be prosperous, and it doesn't always have to be money, income, or career related. In fact, if you can relate to how I feel about this right now, sometimes it's nice to just be like, wow, life is so enjoyable when I'm not thinking about those things. And so some of you may be finding prosperity in your relationships. Some of you may be finding prosperity in your personal life, in your home life. There may be something that you've rearranged in your home and it is bringing you prosperity because you enjoy it. So there's a lot to be said there. Some of you may also be having more of an emphasis on your health right now, having to focus on your health. The nodes were previously in your 12th and your 6th house. So a lot of Gemini placements, you've likely had things going on personally that maybe weren't as obvious in the last series of eclipses in 2022 that now are going to become a bit more obvious, meaning maybe you're ready to share something with someone. Maybe you're ready to share a part of yourself with someone. Maybe you're ready to take a chance on something because you've learned about it prior. So that said, prosperity lies ahead, Geminis. Take a chance on yourself. As a final note, for the remainder of this year, we will have those eclipses really highlighting your 11th house and your 5th house. So there may be changes in your creative expression, in your community, in your friend groups, and a lot of you may be also completing romantic cycles in your life right now as well. We just had Venus retrograde and it was in your 3rd house. Some of you may have had contact or communication with people from past relationships or just people who you knew at previous times of your life, or you may be wanting to do that with a specific situation. And this may be emphasizing the importance of closing out a cycle. Sometimes we can associate our identities with certain times of our life or certain people that we were close with, and there may be a part of you that wants to evolve, that is itching to change, and perhaps talking to someone that you previously were close with or that you knew at a specific time of your life may give you some closure or completion or just some perception around a part of you that is shifting or changing, and honoring that part of you through letting it go, grieving it, celebrating it, or even bringing it further or more into who you are today could be a way that evolves over the next handful of months as we close out 2023. Okay, Geminis, thank you for watching. And if you would like to book a personal reading with me, you can do so on my website. Cancer placements. Welcome to the last quarter of 2023. I hope this year has treated you well so far, or it's treated you to something. Yes, so I'd like to start by sharing the card that I've pulled for you all. So that's conclusions are within reach. And it is the full moon eclipse card. I also just love this card. I love it. Yeah, so the message that I feel with this for you all, and I'll just hold it here for you. The message that I feel for this with you all is, well, we have a full moon eclipse coming up still this year on October 28th. This is going to be in Taurus actually, and this is really going to be what closes out that eclipse cycle that we had in Taurus and Scorpio through 2022 to the beginning of this year. So the conclusions that some of you may be looking for right now, there may be situations that feel like they haven't fully completed. You're wondering what something is still, you're wondering what something may turn into still. You're wondering if something is over. You're wondering if there's going to be something else that's coming. There's a sense of noticing that you may still be in a cycle that you would like to be over, you would like it to be completed, but there might still be things that need to shift around, that need to move, that need to end. And this is the message with this card, is that by the end of this eclipse season on October 28th, which will complete our eclipse season, you may have an experience that allows you to feel that something has fully been completed. If you're waiting for an answer to something, this could be something like applying for a job or wondering what you're gonna do in a certain situation. Perhaps you're waiting for clarity. Perhaps you're waiting to really have an understanding in your intuition. I feel the message around divine timing as well for you all. Like sometimes when we're trying to force a situation or trying to do something on our own timing, that's when the universe is like, actually, that's not what we have in mind. So there may be something in your life that you just have to step away from, or just be patient with, or just let be whatever it is. And maybe you're in a situation right now that you would like for it to move forward, you would like for something to change, but there's likely something in that situation that is so potent with intuition or understanding or resources or processing or opportunity that is maybe not as obvious because there is an emphasis on trying to move beyond the situation. But whatever is right in front of us tends to be what we are meant to look at, even if it's not what we always think we're meant to look at or what we want to look at. But there may be an opportunity for some of you right now to just be able to sit with something and to really get something else out of it. An example would be like if you've ever had something that you thought was empty, and then you go to it and you find there's one last thing in it, like there's one last piece of chocolate left, or there's one last egg. Those are my examples. So there might be something where you thought it was empty, you thought there wasn't anything in there, maybe you even thought you got rid of something, and then you find it and you're like, oh, I still have it. Or there's more left, there's something else in there. So that's kind of the energy that I feel with this card, and it speaks to some of the transits as well for you all. So if you are waiting for a cycle to close, a chapter to shift, if you're waiting for something to kind of evolve, and I get the sense that this may be intuitive for you all. So you may know something that's shifting inside of you, and it may not be obvious. It may be something that you're hanging on to a bit, or you're still processing, and there may be a desire for it to be over. But this message would say that this eclipse season is going to bring things to a conclusion. Some of you may have experiences through this eclipse season coming up that bring something to an end, or to a cycle closing itself out or completing itself that started at the beginning of 2022. Yes, okay. The other thing with that message is that some of you may also feel that you've put a lot of effort into something and you haven't quite seen the reward from it in a certain domain of your life. And this could also speak to the fact that there's going to be something that shows up more evidentially by the end of October, perhaps in this eclipse season. Full moon in Taurus can be very prosperous. It can be very tangible. So it can show that if you felt something intuitively, but you haven't seen it in your everyday life, you haven't seen proof or evidence of it, this is a message to have faith around whatever it is that you feel is worthy of having faith for. So knowing to practice discernment with something and not hold something that perhaps needs to be let go of. But either way, there's likely something that may show itself to you, reveal itself to you by the end of October. Speaking a bit more on the transits for you Cancer placements, Saturn is now in your 9th house. Now, Saturn can be a doozy wherever it is. But with it being in your 9th house, this can actually be an experience that feels quite different from how Saturn was impacting you over the last 4 or 5 years. Saturn being in Pisces, it's in a fellow water sign. So if you have Cancer placements, Saturn is going to essentially reach out to those Cancer placements in your chart and give you an opportunity to find more structure, more understanding, more clarity, or give you more opportunity around something specifically. As an example, let's say that you have a Cancer moon, and maybe there's been something that seems like an emotional cycle that's gone in your life. Maybe there's something you're working on relating to your emotions or emotional processing, or perhaps it's something connected to your body, connected to a specific relationship. Saturn now being in Pisces is going to highlight that moon in Cancer for you, and it's going to give you an opportunity to find structure around this thing that perhaps has gone on for a long time or been a part of your life for a long time. An example of this is maybe you have a lot of expression within you, and maybe you haven't always had an outlet for how to express those things. Saturn may give you an opportunity to put that expression into something specifically. Maybe you're discovering a new hobby, you're discovering a new education opportunity, a new field to go into, you're finding new certification in something. There may be an opportunity to advance yourself in a certain area of your life that is going to allow your specific placement in Cancer, whatever that is for you, to be more exalted. Now, the 9th house is very much related to some of those things, especially when we're thinking about trying new things, learning new things, adventuring into different fields. The 9th house deals with travel, with education, and with spiritual knowledge, especially when Saturn is there. So a lot of you may be deciding also that you'd like to advance your education education in some area, you'd like to learn something new, you'd like to get certified in something, or you just are learning more about life, there can be an opportunity to really step into more understanding and knowledge, reading more books. It's just giving you more structure or context for a spiritual lesson that you've learned, and now it's giving you an opportunity to integrate that, or it may just be opening the world, a whole new world, into new horizons for you. So I would definitely say go where it leads you, follow the path. There may be something on that path that is quite important in a later part of your life, perhaps over the next couple of years. That becomes more obvious as Saturn moves through Pisces. Talking a lot about Saturn here, but the other transits that have been going on that are affecting you, Cancer placements. Jupiter is now in your 11th house, and it came out of your 10th house to Cancer. So a lot of you may be having an experience this year where you are already receiving rewards for things that you worked on before. An example of this would be that you, let's say, have put a lot of effort into something on a personal level, but it wasn't showing up in any way that was obvious. Well, this year, maybe you've had experiences where you can point to and say, oh, I did this, I achieved this, I received this, I experienced this. Maybe there's somewhere you've always wanted to take a trip to, and this year you finally went, or you finally did it. Or maybe that's something that you're looking forward to next year. There's a lot of ways that that can show up, but essentially it is showing that this is a time of growth as it relates to how you see yourself, how you present yourself, and really giving yourself the celebration and the recognition you deserve for the things that you have done in your life, the things that you've experienced. Sometimes that's just giving yourself credit for showing up, for getting out of bed, or for doing something that was really hard to do. Even if there is no result from it, even if it's not providing you with a reward, sometimes the reward is the experience itself, doing the thing that you say you're gonna do. And so that may be what a lot of you are experiencing right now, Cancer placements. The last note for you all is that we are getting out of the Venus retrograde cycle. That's been in your second house of finances, of money, of income. Some of you may be going through a stagnant period right now since July, perhaps a little bit prior to that in June, where things have just been kind of crickets and you're wondering if something's going to come through. Maybe you are having less income than you usually do, or you're not sure about your income right now. As Venus is moving direct in Leo, and as it is going to be speeding up in Leo as well, this is going to clear through your second house through the rest of the year, and then moving through your third and your fourth houses as well. So there's an emphasis right now on having faith that if you are not seeing the results of something, it may just be right around the corner. It may be in your mailbox, so check your mail. There's a sense of having more opportunities for income, or more income coming in, if that's been something that has been slow or stagnant for you. Okay, Cancer placements, thank you for watching. If you would like to book a personal reading with me, you can do so on my website. Leo placements, hello, welcome to the last quarter of 2023. The card that I pulled for you as an opening message is, what do you need to release? Of course, this is a random pull, so this is what came out for you. And this is the waning moon. So this message here, and the imagery might be interesting to some of you as well, as it's kind of showing this like winter theme. And so we're going into winter by the end of this year in the Northern Hemisphere. So some of you may be feeling that kind of winter energy coming, a cooler energy around something. And there may be something that's been really hot in your life that is cooling off. And there's an opportunity perhaps to release some things that have really brought a lot of heat to your life. Heat being friction, heat being events, activities, heightened emotions, whatever it is, there may be something that is naturally or gradually being released. Now, some of you, this may be something that is going on for a long time. In fact, when I ask the question, what do you need to release? The first thing that comes to mind may be the thing. That may be it. And sometimes we'll have something come to mind. Our subconscious is like, hey, this is it, this is it. And we're like, maybe that's not it. Let me think about it. But I would encourage you to really ask yourself that question and see what comes up. See what is the first thing or the intuitive nudge that you get. And when we think about releasing things, this is a great time towards the end of the year in general, because of course we are ending a year and then starting a new year. So there is an opportunity perhaps to release something in your life that has served its purpose, that has completed its cycle, and now there's a shift in energy, a shift in space and energetic space in your life that will occur once you do allow something to be released. Now, of course, this is extra relevant because we are getting out of Venus retrograde, and Venus retrograde was in your sign. So Leos, a lot of you have probably been going through some releasing. You might be like, what more do I need to release? There may be something that has been really a focus point in your life for the last couple of months through this Venus retrograde. It may be something that's more subtle as well. Venus has to do with relationships, with money, with attachments. And in this case, for you Leos, it may also have to do specifically with how you look, with your relationship with yourself, with the judgment or criticism or the love and acceptance that you have for yourself. There may be a relationship in your life that is also evolving and giving you a mirror for this. But specifically, with this Venus retrograde, this may have a lot to do with how you see yourself, how you accept yourself, and the criticism that you may be putting on yourself that is preventing you from having an open-hearted experience with your body, with yourself in any way. And this may be something that can be a bit sensitive for you all. So, take it as it feels safe for you, but there may be something specific to your body or to your health that is being shifted or changing. And one of the things that is coming up as well, especially with thinking about the imagery and the evolution of seasons, is that whether we like it or not, in this life we age, and you can take care of your health and you can do all the procedures you want and you can do all the things you want, but we age. And of course now there's a lot of different opportunities for reducing the effects of aging and even the cellular level of aging as well, like with stem cell therapy. But in this life, things age, things change, things evolve. Sometimes when something seems like it's ending, it's over, like a tree that has died because it's the end of a season for it. It's not really dead, it's not really over, it's just taking a break. It's just allowing that season of its life to be silent, to be rejuvenating. And then it's going to come back to life and bear new fruit in the future. And so there may be something in your life that perhaps it feels that it's this loss, or it feels like it's gone, or it feels like there's no possible way that this could ever be present in your life again in the way that it was. But maybe it's just a cycle as well, where you have to release it in this season, but it may come back in the future. And again, take that as you will, because whenever we are going through a shift and a change of something, and we do have to release something, there's something within it that may not come back because we're releasing it in this current state of time, in your current life, in your current reality. And so your reality may change from now until the time that something does come back around for you. But by then, you may be a different person. You may see something differently, see someone differently. So the message that may be the most useful for you all here, especially as we're getting out of this Venus retrograde, is that letting something completely go in your life may be the freedom that you need to just experience life more, to just be present in something. The things that we often hold on to, and I've said this a lot in general in my life and to people at times, is that often the things that we're holding on to like the tightest are the things that we need to release the most. And so if there's something that it seems like, oh my gosh, I could never live without this thing, perhaps that's the thing that needs to be released. And some other notes for you, Leo, with the transits this year so far. Saturn is now in your 8th house. Pluto is flirting around your 7th house of relationships, but now it's back in your 6th house again. The North Node is now in your 9th house of spiritual understanding, new horizons, and Jupiter is in your 10th house. So this area of your chart is really about integrating personal lessons into a more shared experience, or more communal or collective experience. So there may be certain things that you have gone through personally, and now you're sharing them, you're starting new chapters of your life. There's things that are very obviously changing. An example would be getting into a new relationship, or starting a family, or having something change, like getting out of a relationship. And those are very obvious changes. And there may be something like that you've gone through already, that now with these planets shifting in their position in your chart, specific for Leo risings, but again, this is the relativity to Leo. There may be something that is sensitive or has been sensitive in your life that is now you're able to work with it a bit more. It's a bit more malleable. It's giving you more opportunity to bring it into your relationships or to bring it into community settings. Let's say that it's an idea that you've had for something and it's just been an idea for a long time, but now it feels approachable. Now it feels like you can actually bring it to life. Or perhaps there's something that you've been wanting to bring up in a relationship for a long time, or a part of yourself you've been wanting to reveal in your relationship for a long time, and maybe now it feels safe to do that. With the eclipse seasons that we will have in Aries and Libra, there's going to be a real emphasis on that 9th house and the 3rd house for you Leos, and in the area of your chart in your life that really deals with communication and integration of lessons and knowledge. So there may be certain things that you've known in theory for a long time that you are now being asked to implement and integrate into your life. This may specifically have to do with relationships. An example I'm feeling called to share for you all is that, let's say that you have a relationship in your life that is very close to you, like a family member. Sometimes when we are in family relationships, we can be really used to communicating in a certain way, and we may think that that doesn't spill over into other relationships or friendships in our life. So we may think that we can just show up a certain way in this dynamic, but that doesn't affect anything else. There may be a mirror in your life right now in that relationship that is asking you to see how however you show up in something is going to be how you show up in everything. Like that saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. So there may be an opportunity for you all through the rest of this year going into 2024 to really practice conscious communication in your life, and maybe specifically in relationships that can tend to be habitual or ritualistic in the way that you communicate. This is a great time to kind of break away from a pattern that may seem really subconscious. And a lot of you may also be doing this in your career, since Jupiter is at the top of your chart. It may be showing you where personal things are affecting or spilling over into your career. And this can be neutral, positive, good, bad, all the things. An example of this on the other side would be that, let's say that you've done a lot of personal things and you've practiced that in your personal relationships, and now you're seeing how the growth that you've brought into your personal relationships is now showing up in something that's more public. Okay, Leos, well, that is my message for you all. Thank you for watching, and if you'd like to book a personal reading with me, you can do so at my website. Hello, Virgos. Thank you for being here. I hope 2023 has treated you well so far. And this is a glimpse into what may be present for you right now and what you could expect for the last part of this year. So starting with the card that was pulled for you, this is Show the World the Real You. And this is the full moon in Aquarius card. I'm getting the intuition that something may be related to something that happened during the full moon in Aquarius for you all, which would have been not that long ago here. We had the blue moon in August, where we had a full moon in Aquarius at the beginning of August, and we had the full moon in Pisces at the end of August. So that was very recent. So some of you may have had an experience perhaps from the beginning of August until the end that is worthy of reflection, and that is worth looking into a bit more if something happened in your life. And it's very likely that that's the case because the full moon in Pisces was in your 7th house of relationships. So with the idea of showing the world the real you, this also makes a lot of sense because Venus retrograde has gone on in your 12th house. It is now direct, and it will be slowly moving to your 1st house. So there's quite literally an opportunity for Venus to be highlighting you and who you are. And that may be something that you are seeing shift over the next couple of months. There may be an opportunity in relationships, in work, online, whatever it may be, to step into a more holistic version of yourself, or to show people who you really are. If there's a sense that you have to act a certain way over here and act another way over here, and you can't really show up in your full authenticity, this is an opportunity to look at how you can start to show people more of who you are. Maybe there's something that you're into that you don't think other people are going to be into or are going to appreciate or understand. Maybe this is an opportunity to share your interest in that thing or in something with a group of people, with a specific person. There might be some wounds around rejection and not being accepted, perhaps through experiences that you've had in your life or in friend groups or in communities. And that may also be something that's worth reflecting on. With those recent full moons, you may have had experiences that brought up old emotions or something that happened in the past. So this may be something that's worth reflecting on. And a message I feel for you all as well is that there's so much healing energy in our reflections. And sometimes it can be scary to look at something because it was painful. It's like, I don't want to look at that. That wasn't fun. No, thank you. But once we look into it, once we feel into it, that's how we alchemize it. That's how we change it. That said, some of the other major transits that have gone on in 2023 that you might be experiencing or have experienced so far this year is that Saturn is now in your 7th house. So speaking of relationships, this may be really where the emphasis is for you all. Now, Jupiter previously moved through your 7th house a couple of years ago, and that may have been a time where a relationship in your life really took the pedestal in some way, or where there was something that really became a focus in a relationship. And this would have been back in 2022, at the beginning of 2022. So there may be something that was started in your life at the beginning of 2022 that may be having more of an eye from Saturn on it now, which requires a bit more discipline or responsibility or attention to detail. Like in the example that you are in a relationship, let's say that you are getting more serious with someone or you're making a big commitment with someone. Saturn deals with those commitments that we make. And so some of you may be in a committed relationship, may want to commit in a relationship, and there's an attention to detail with all of this. Saturn gives us the gumption that we need to make things happen. So some of you may also just be seeing where there's more of an emphasis on taking responsibility in some commitment of your life, whether this is in a romantic relationship, a friendship, a partnership, or just how you show up in relations. And this may also have to do with your work. If you are in a career that requires a lot of responsibility or commitment, there's a message that comes through with Saturn being in your 7th, which is that the commitments that you make will pay off. Sometimes it can be scary to make those commitments right away. They can come with more responsibility, but that it will pay off. So that is the message that I have for you, Virgos. For the rest of this year, we have eclipse season coming up, which is going to complete cycles that went on in your 9th and your 3rd house, and it's bringing it into your 8th and your 2nd house. Some of you may be dealing with shared resources, shared finances, something dealing with investments or selling something. There may be things that you had as an idea over the last couple of years that are now real in your life. And so it's a new level, a new layer of working with things that are right in front of you. That said, we also are getting out of this Mercury retrograde in September, and that's in your sign. So some of you may be having a delay as it relates to sharing something, expressing something, communicating something, or receiving communication for something. Some of you may have had a communication come up that put a halt in something or stopped something, and there may be a process that is still occurring from now until the middle of September, really until October. So some of you may be experiencing that right now, but just know that Mercury will go direct and it will move on its way and then go into the next sign. So right now, some of you may be feeling like that Mercury retrograde is really shifting things up in your life. It may be giving you an opportunity to practice new styles of communication, to practice patience in an area of your life, or to practice non-reactivity, whatever that may be. So yes, we will get through it all. Thank you, Virgo, for watching this reading. And if you'd like to have a personal reading with me, you can book that on my website. Hello, Libras. Thank you for being here. This is your reading as a check-in for 2023 and looking at some of the energies as we close out this year. So the card that was pulled for you is you and your loved ones are safe. And this is the New Moon in Cancer card. I feel like this may be very specific for some of you. You may receive this message and and feel the energy of it, or a relief of sorts. Perhaps some of you have had an experience that is very obvious in connection with this, where maybe someone that you love was not safe recently, or you haven't felt safe, or you could just be worrying about the people that you love, worrying if they are safe. There's a lot of fear in the world right now around things happening, natural disasters, pandemics, viruses, the things that have been really evident in our culture for the last few years. So some of you may just feel that there's a need to feel safe and feel that your loved ones will be okay. Again, a message I'm getting with this, and this can make sense for Libra, because Libra is really representing relationships in so many ways. And so a lot of you may really care a lot about the people that you love. And you may care so much so that sometimes it may feel that it's taking up a lot of your time or your energy or your space and attention. And so the message that I'm receiving is that sometimes we have to accept that we cannot control what happens in someone else's life, even if it's out of love. We can't always be with someone, we can't always protect someone, and there's a need when we're coming face to face with that realization. In my experience, there's a need to surrender to the divine and to surrender to God and to know that things will be okay. And sometimes we just have to pray on it, or just put out the energy into the universe that we believe that everything will work out as it's supposed to. And that means that sometimes things may not be what we want, and they may not be what we think is ideal or supposed to happen, but accepting those events and those realities too can be very freeing. So that is the message for you all. And when we think about the transits that are going on, the nodes are now in your sign. The South Node is now in Libra as of July 17th, and the North Node is now in Aries. So Libras, when we're thinking about the South Node being in your sign, this is asking you and giving you the opportunity to release layers of your identity that you are moving on from. We have these certain parts of our life and our self that serve us at certain chapters, but when we move beyond a chapter, it's important to recognize that the part of us that served us prior may not be the part of us that is going to be at the center stage of who we are in this next chapter. So some of you may be having a shift in your life where perhaps you've changed an environment, or you've moved into something else, or there's been an obvious chapter change, but maybe you still feel that you're in a previous place because that part of you is still very active. And what I would recommend in that context is something that can be really helpful for releasing past parts of our identity. And this may be relevant for you now. This may be relevant for you over the eclipse seasons that we will have in Libra and Aries, starting really opening up in the end of this month, September into October. Something that can be helpful is really honoring the parts of you that have helped you before, not trying to get rid of it, not trying to put our shadow further in the shadow. The shadow needs to be seen, it needs to be witnessed. So if there's a part of you that maybe you don't like so much, maybe you don't want it to be there, that may be the part of you that is the most obvious right now. Eclipse season deals with light changes, and it can highlight things in a certain way. So some of you may have an experience where this upcoming eclipse season, starting again at the end of September into October, gives you an opportunity to look at things that are in your shadow, to look at things that maybe you don't want to be a part of who you are, but that are very important for honoring. The parts of us that we may consider shadow are often parts of us that have helped us to get through difficult situations, or even to survive at times of our life. And so it's important to honor those. Those of you who may be familiar with IFS or internal family systems, this can be a great technique to work through things where parts of us may come up and we're not really sure how to handle it or manage it. And whether you're working with a IFS practitioner, a therapist, or you are learning about it yourself, it can be helpful to understand that just because a part of us is there doesn't mean that that's all of who we are. And again, that often those parts of us just need to be witnessed. So that may be relevant for some of you, and especially right now, as we're coming out of this Venus retrograde, there may be an emphasis on paying attention to how Venus has shown up in your life recently. Venus retrograde has been in your 11th house. And so this is going to be highlighting things that can feel very public, social media use, how you're seen in your job, how you show up in your career. You may be noticing that there's a certain dynamic in friendships or communities where people see you a certain way or you feel seen in a certain way, but that's not really how you want to be showing yourself, or that's not really the dynamic that you want to create. And so there could be an opportunity to really allow yourself to change and evolve in public ways, in a community situation, in a work environment, in a family relationship, which can be the trickiest. So there can be a lot of situations in your life right now that are pushing you to kind of shift or change. Sometimes the things that allow us to do that are the things that are the most irritating or frustrating, or they trigger us. And often those triggers are the perfect opportunity to implement, integrate, or shift something. That said, the North Node is now in your 7th house of relationships. And the dynamic of this altogether may be that some of you are stepping into a more serious relationship. You're focusing on relationships, you're attracting a relationship, and this will have to do with how you as an individual are shifting as well, are evolving as well. There's only so much space in our lives, and if you are single or have been single, and you are now stepping into more of a relationship that requires more time and intimacy with others, this is a dynamic that you may experience where parts of yourself are shifting to create more space for others. Now, it's important to note there that that doesn't mean changing who you are to be with someone else or to make space for someone else, but rather to just make space organically by being the best version of yourself, being your full self, and knowing that that will naturally create the right attraction for the person that you are seeking in your life, or for the friendships and environments that you are looking for. Becoming the person that you want to be with, in essence. And there may be some of that happening for you guys organically and naturally through these eclipse cycles. Okay, Libra, that is my message for you. Thank you so much for watching. And if you want to book a reading with me, you can do so on my website. Hello, Scorpios. Thank you for being here. This is a check-in for 2023 so far, and looking at the last quarter of the year. So starting with the card that I pulled for you, you got Be Bold and Make the First Move. And this is a cardinal moon. So the cardinal moon feels very relevant right now because we are about to enter Libra season at the end of September. So Libra is a cardinal sign, and so is Aries. And the nodes are in Aries and Libra right now. We are entering that eclipse season. And specifically, we have a full moon in Aries that will happen at the end of September. And that's going to be the next cardinal moon that we have. And then we also will have a solar eclipse in Libra in October. So a lot of you may have some event go on in your life by the end of September through October that requires you to really be bold with something. Now, some of you may have been a bit in a stagnant period, perhaps with your career or with something related to a experience that deals with reputation or working with others. And this has to do with Venus retrograde having taken place at the top of your chart. So that said, we are experiencing eclipse season coming up as an opportunity to shift things in our lives. And some of you may be being asked to step out of a stagnant period or to take action on something if it has felt that you have not had a chance to take action on something, or you've not had the energy to do something, or you've not had the courage to do it. There may be a personal situation in your life as well that is asking you to be bold and to make the first move. Venus, of course, deals with romance and relationships, which is what it is most popular for at times. And this is happening again after we're getting out of this Venus retrograde. Venus is now moving through your 10th house. And so a lot of you may have had an experience in your career recently where maybe you want to ask for a raise, ask for a promotion, ask for a new opportunity, explore a new career path, apply to a job that maybe you don't think you're going to get. This is the chance to take a risk on yourself, to try something, to be bold and to do it. Some of you may also be being asked to take on more responsibility in your relationships in some way. If you are used to being passive in a certain area of your life, letting someone else make decisions for you, letting a community make decisions for you, a partner, a parent, a family member, a friend, a government, whatever it is, there may be an opportunity right now to really just do something on your own. And that doesn't mean doing it away from someone else, but rather bringing it into a situation that maybe prior you have been a bit passive or stagnant in. Sometimes when we take a while to do something, it can be a little bit scary. Like I'll use a personal example here where having taken such a break from social media, I'm having to be very courageous as I put myself out there again. It's not something that's coming easy. It's something that I'm having to really put an effort into right now just to show up at all. And so there's a sense that you may experience something like that in your life where maybe it doesn't feel like you want to do it. It's like, oh, I'd rather just not do that. But sometimes we have to just do it. We have to be bold with something and just know that that's going to turn the page of something. Maybe we don't know what it's going to lead to. We don't know what the results are going to be. We don't know if there's even going to be a response or any results. But sometimes the doing it is the most important part. That said, the eclipses are now going to be taking place out of your sign. So some of you, that may be a major relief because you have dealt with the South Node. Though by now, with all of the eclipses that took place in Scorpio and Taurus, a lot of you may feel that there's been some kind of a major release or relief in your life around something. It may not be something that's black and white or that's obvious. There may be a lot of nuance to it, such as ending a relationship or something ending in your life that was out of your control. And there may be some grief that is experienced with that, and there may be a need to allow yourself to feel the grief of an ending in your life. At the same time, there is likely also a both and situation here where there is perhaps more space in your life to experience something new or to step into something new or to just show up and feel a bit more free with something. As an example, perhaps you lost a job that was serving you in certain ways for a very long time. But maybe coming out of this job at first, it was upsetting. You didn't want to lose it. Maybe there's fears around income or what is going to happen next. But maybe in this same breath, there's also a situation right now where you realize that you were very overworked or you were underpaid or you didn't like the work environment or parts of yourself were very repressed in that environment. And so you may be seeing that, oh, now there's freedom to find a more aligned job, to take the lessons of that experience and to transfer it to something else by choosing a different kind of work environment, a different schedule, negotiating for better pay, whatever it may be. So there could be opportunities in your life right now where there's loss and there's grief, but there's also a new reality, new freedom to do things perhaps you haven't had a chance to do in a very long time. These eclipses that will really start kicking off in October and kind of entering that energy by the end of September are also going to be completing those eclipse cycles for you. So some of you may also be experiencing a stagnancy still until eclipse season because you're letting something evolve or shift. You may be coming to the end of a cycle where you know something's got to change, where you know something is over, or where you know something is just not working for you anymore. And there may be an opportunity in your life to really make that change now. But if that's not the case, eclipse season is likely going to be what helps you to move on or transcend something. And lastly, Saturn is now in your 5th house in Pisces. So a lot of you may be receiving what I am saying, and it may be specific to an area of your life that deals with romance, relationships, family connections, parent connections specific to a mother perhaps, and it may also deal with children and the relationship that you have with your children or a responsibility around children in your life. That said, coming back to the message for you all, be bold to make the first move. If you're afraid of something turning out for the worst or not turning out at all, perhaps the only thing you have to think about at all is taking the first step, and that is going to lead to what comes next. So this is your encouragement to do that if that is something that is relevant for you right now, Scorpios. Thank you so much for watching this, and if you would like to book a personal reading with me, you can do so at my website. Hello, Sagittarius! Welcome to the end of 2023. Welcome to the end. Thank you for being here, and to start off your reading, this is the card that was pulled for you. So randomly, the end of a tough cycle approaches. And this is the full moon in Capricorn card. So some of you may feel that as a major connection to something in your life. You may feel relief from just hearing that. The end of a tough cycle approaches. Others may have a specific experience in your life that could be connected to the full moon in Capricorn that we had earlier this year, way back in Cancer season, as that's when that occurs. And others may also have something coming up in Capricorn season specifically, which of course is right after your season. So some of you may be going through an experience right now where you're wondering if it's going to change. Sometimes when we're dragged through an experience for so long, whether we're dragging ourselves by it or it feels outside of our control, at some point it can be exhausting. There can be an experience of burnout, an experience of a rock bottom where it's like it can't get much worse than this, or what else is going to come from this. There may be something in your life right now that feels like that, like it's gone on for a really long time, even if it's only been a year, 2 years, 3 years. It may feel that it's been ages, centuries, your whole life. And sometimes experiences that are really intense, even if they go on for a couple months, it can feel like it's been years, an age, a life. So some of you may be going through something right now and you're wondering, is this going to end? Like, am I going to feel better? Am I going to get through this? This is a message that, yes, you are. You're going to get through it. So that may be relieving for some of you to hear if things have been a bit rough recently. And I'm getting the sense that for a lot of you, it's probably something very personal. It may not be something that's like obvious. Sometimes, I've said this before, I believe, but sometimes the most difficult experiences that we have, it's almost when we don't have an event to point to be like, that's why it's hard. That's why it's difficult. I shared earlier in my video that earlier this year, my father passed away, and that has been a very difficult experience for me. And I also shared that one of the benefits that I feel that I've received from the experience of it is that I now know what grief feels like. And that prior in my life, there were so many times when I was grieving, but because I didn't have an obvious experience of it, I didn't know it was grief. And sometimes that is exactly what life puts us through, is we have to go through experiences where we know the feeling so well, but maybe we don't have the direct experience to point to. And it can be difficult because it may feel that we don't know when it's going to end. We don't know when it began. We don't know what it is. So some of you may be going through an experience like that. And if you are, one of the things I recommend right now as well, or that may be helpful, is to think about a time of your life where something did drastically change inside of you. Like maybe you were going through a dark night of the soul and then the sun came out again. The sun will come out tomorrow. So there might be something in your life right now where it's like, oh my gosh, is this gonna pass? It's not gonna pass. And it might be helpful to think about a prior time of your life where it did pass, where something was difficult and you did get through it. And so that may be a message for some of you or all of you right now. Additionally, we are getting out of this Venus retrograde, and this Venus retrograde was in Leo, so Sagittarius, that is your fellow fire sign over there. It is in your 9th house, and so the experience that you may have had with this previous Venus retrograde may have been pretty spiritually riveting for you, whether that was by choice or not. There may have been experiences that were really just here to put you through the school of life. There may have been some experiences that feel quite humbling in the sense that it was not what you expected, but perhaps it was what you needed. And that tends to be how the 9th house functions at times. Sometimes it gives us opportunity to just take that step ourselves and learn about something, practice something, want to better our lives, better ourselves. Other times, that's just what we end up having to do when we reach a certain pivotal point of our life where we need to make changes. And so Venus being in your 9th house through this retrograde cycle and having been retrograde, it's likely that some of you may have had an experience where you wanted something to work a certain way, or you wanted to keep doing something a certain way, and the Venus retrograde showed you that that is not working. That perspective on something is not working. You have to change your perspective. The expectations that we set are often what leave us disappointed. And so if you don't have an attachment to an expectation, experiences can just be more experiential and they can be more sensational because we're not attached to anything. But when we have attachments to expectations, sometimes things can feel pretty disappointing when someone lets us down, or when something lets us down, or when we let ourselves down. And so I think a message for you all may be to give yourself a pat on the back just to get through experiences, even if it's not the most glorious achievement or the best possible thing that could have happened. Sometimes just getting through it and learning something from it, or even just getting through it and not learning anything, is worth giving gratitude to and just being grateful for. Even if it hasn't left you with anything, the experience itself may make more sense later. And even if it doesn't, just knowing that you are alive, you are still here, you are still meant to experience life, and sometimes the nothingness of life is the experience. So there may be some of those spiritual lessons that are coming in hot for you all through this retrograde cycle. I'm also receiving the message for some of you that Venus retrograde you may have had certain expectations for the retrograde itself, like reconnecting with someone, something coming back around, and maybe it didn't happen. And so again, releasing any expectation or realizing that the disappointment that you may have about something isn't actually about what happened, but rather what didn't happen, but what you expected to happen. So there can just be an opportunity to shift your perspective and notice that the emotions you may have around something shift as well. And talking about shifting, the North Node and the South Node are now in your 11th and your 5th house, the North Node being in your 5th house, 11th highlighted by the South Node. So there is going to be an emphasis on these houses over the next year for you all. As we enter this eclipse season at the end of September through October, there are likely going to be experiences that highlight the themes around 5th house, romance, relationships, attachments, connection to the mother, connection to substance, the way that we have fun, and the 11th house community, the way that we are seen, the way that we present ourselves, and things coming back around. So there may be experiences in your life right now that are specific to those things, and releasing something may bring you more of something else. And that's important to remember as we go into eclipse season and with regard to what I had just said. Lastly, Saturn is now in your 4th house of home, family, and foundations. This is putting an emphasis on making sure that the foundation beneath you is stable. Some of you may have taken more responsibility on in a home environment, or you need to set yourself up to be in a better home environment. And Saturn is going to help you do that over the next handful of years. So as it's just recently in Pisces, recently in your 4th house, it's going to be highlighting anything that will need to be formed, built, or structured over the next few years. Some of you may be literally building a house or thinking about building a house, or you may be doing renovations on a house. As an example, maybe you bought a house and you realize it needs a little bit more work, but the work will be done, and Saturn's going to help you do that. So that is an example of what those transits may be for you all. And overall, coming back to the message that the end of a tough cycle approaches. So some of you may feel a lot of relief through the end of this year. And I am wishing you all the best through that. Thank you for watching. And if you'd like to book a reading with me, you can do so on my website. Capricorns, thank you for tuning in. I'm going to start this reading with the card that was pulled for you, which is Look at the Bigger Picture. And this is the Full Moon in Sagittarius card. And this is interesting because Sagittarius just got the Capricorn Full Moon card. So you may have Sagittarius placements in your chart as well. You may be dealing with a Sagittarius placement, or this message may just be relevant to a Sagittarius season coming up at the end of this year. So this message, look at the bigger picture, and love the image, love the colors. This may be something that a lot of you are being called to do right now as we close out this year. Of course, Capricorn season will be the finale of the year as it goes. So a lot of you, if you're a Capricorn sun, you'll have a birthday coming up. And if not, you may have a placement that will be highlighted through the end of this year. When we go into that fall and winter season, and wherever you may be in the world, if you have a Capricorn sun, always before your birthday, the sun will be entering the very sensitive closing cycles of the houses around the 11th to the 12th house. Now, this isn't going to be until the end of the year, the last couple months of the year, but a lot of you may be sensing that energy right now, perhaps going into a more personal time, or perhaps experiencing something that feels like the end of a cycle, or just knowing that there's something coming up for you as you enter a new solar year for the suns out there. That said, for all Capricorn placements, the message I'm really getting with this is that if you've been super hyper focused on something and worried about like a specific thing coming together, or perhaps you've just been getting hyper focused on a little thing here and there, or irritated by certain things here and there, or feeling that something's not working out, this message is to zoom out, to literally zoom out, see the bigger picture, see what's happening. If there's things going on in your life where it's like, why is that happening? Why has this happened? What do I do about it? There may be a message to just like see how it could be serving you in ways that are not obvious, or just to sense into what is going on a more subtle energy level. As a Capricorn myself, I definitely have had so many experiences this year where, again, as I've shared in the check-in update part of my video, at times, during those experiences that I've gone through, it was like, what is going on? This is difficult. But as I look through the experience now, and I'm able to have a little bit of a distance from the major events that seem to have occurred, I'm able to really feel more of a resonance with the bigger picture of life, with life itself, with finding gratitude for that bigger picture, because sometimes that's the only way we can look at something to really bring things together, or bring things to a way that makes sense, and that is not just the doom or gloom or the victimhood that can sometimes be a slippery slope to go down when we experience challenges in life. So that specifically may be relevant for some of you. That said, thinking about you Capricorns as well, Pluto left your sign finally earlier this year, but now it has danced back into your sign also earlier this year. So a lot of you are going to be experiencing that Pluto energy at the final degrees of your sign still, and this has been a big theme for this year. So a lot of you, this has to do with like closing out major cycles of your life, releasing patterns that feel very deep and integrated. The power of this Pluto energy and position for you is that if there's things that seem unchangeable, Pluto is going to help you change that. Pluto is going to alchemize that. If something seems in your mind like, oh, I could never do that, I could never change that, it's fixed the way it is, it's irreversible. Pluto can be really helpful for realizing that like things can change in an instance. Sometimes we just have to have that belief and that faith that things are changing and that they're capable of changing, even on a very cellular level. Venus retrograde also just went on in your 8th house. So a lot of you may be grieving something kind of privately right now. You may be experiencing grief that feels very personal. It doesn't really feel like something you're ready to put out into the world more, or to share more, or that you are still just experiencing what it means to be in that grief, in that experience of loss in some way, or just really understanding what it feels like to be in your own emotions and to know what you feel like versus what someone else feels like. Sometimes when we talk about our own experiences of emotion with other people, especially if you're very sensitive, it can be easy to take on other people's interpretations of that, or other people's emotions. And having the time to ourselves to know how we feel, I think is very important. So that may be what a lot of you have gone through this Venus retrograde, starting in June to July, and as we close it out through October. Venus retrograde is now over, but we're in shadow until October. Lastly, the eclipses that we will enter into in October, and the energy opening up in September. This is going to really bring a highlight to the 10th and the 4th house for you all. So this is going to emphasize your home life and your work life. If you have that in the same place, there may be an emphasis on finding a balance between those two things. With the North Node being in your 4th house, a lot of you may be asked to focus more on your family, your home life, and your personal relationships at this time. Okay, that is my message for you Capricorns. Thank you for watching. And if you would like to book a personal reading with me, you can do so on my website. Hello, Aquarius placements. Thank you for tuning in for this check-in for the last quarter of 2023. I hope this year has treated you well so far. So starting off, the card that was pulled for you is You Are Good Enough. And this is the full moon in Virgo. We are in Virgo season still right now, so this may be a theme for you right now. The full moon in Virgo happens in Pisces season, so some of you may even have had an experience or a cycle of events starting all the way back in the end of February into March after your season, and coming now into the experience of Virgo season. Some of you may be having a similar experience that happened earlier this year, or this may just be a theme for you perhaps since then. The message with this card is that it is really about learning how to love yourself even when the details do not seem perfect. Releasing perfectionism as it goes. So Aquarius placements, that may be something that a lot of you are learning how to do right now. Saturn has left your sign as of March this year. And so a lot of you may be, feeling the relief of that. Thank you and goodbye. Saturn, of course, is your ruler. So a lot of you may have had a lot of growth, a lot of progress when Saturn was in your sign. But now that it's in your second house, second to Aquarius, this is a time when a lot of you may be focusing more of an emphasis on what you're building, what you're creating, on business, on finances, on planning ahead, and on investing. This may be where you actually are having more of an experience of needing to accept that something is okay, that something is good enough, that you are good enough, you are worthy of sharing something, you are worthy of putting something out there, you are worthy of trying something. When you are detail-oriented and really focused on those things, sometimes that can transform or turn into hypercriticism and being very critical of yourself and of others. And that's not necessarily specific to Aquarius, though Aquarius is an air sign ruled by Saturn, so you guys are definitely good at fine-tuning things and finding the details. But there is a point where we have to accept that whatever is, and that it's good enough. And so some of you may be working on something that you want to release, that you want to put out there, but maybe you're holding it up against a standard that is not really realistic or the best for you right now, or that it simply does not exist. The potential of perfection that you may see is something that may not even be possible. And that's the beauty of having a vision and knowing what is possible, but maybe it's not something that is approachable right now. And starting with something is better than starting with nothing at times. We also just got out of Venus retrograde. We are closing it out in shadow period through September to October. So Aquarius placements, this was opposite your sign in Leo. So a lot of you may be going through an experience in relationships, perhaps a personal relationship, a specific relationship, and maybe you're wondering if you're good enough. An example of this may be that you're dating someone new, you're in a new relationship, or you're in a relationship that you've been with someone for a long time. But maybe there's something in you right now that is wondering if you're good enough for them, that is wondering if you're good enough for love, that if you're good enough for a relationship itself. There can be avoidant tendencies that may show up when we have Venus retrograde in this place to Aquarius, because it may be wanting you to look at where you're running away from love, where you're running away from yourself, where you're running away from someone else. That may not be true for everybody. Obviously, knowing your attachment style in reference to that would be important. But some of you may notice that there's an opportunity to show up more intimately, to be more vulnerable, and to accept that even if you've been rejected in the past or you have felt rejected in the past, that you are good enough. You are good enough to try, you are good enough to show up, and you are good enough to be loved. Lastly, the eclipses that we have in Aries and Libra will be highlighting your 9th and your 3rd house. These eclipse seasons that we will be experiencing through 2024 and really kicking us off here going into the end of the year, this is going to ask you to look at your belief system around certain things and the systems themselves and if they're working for you or not. A very obvious example of this would be like needing to get a new phone or a new laptop or something that is an update or an upgrade happening in your technology because it simply is not working anymore. And there may be less literal examples of that as well, perhaps your communication style. This could be a good time to look at how you're communicating and to see if there's an opportunity to upgrade that as well. All right, that is my message for you, Aquarius. Thank you for watching, and you are good enough. And if you'd like to book a personal reading with me, you can do so on my website. Pisces placements, how you doing? Welcome to the end of the year. I hope you are all doing well. And I'd like to start off with the card that was pulled for you, which is Prosperity Lies Ahead. I believe it was Gemini who also got this card. And that's interesting because Gemini is also a mutable sign. And you are also a mutable sign. And so the message that may be coming through with this for you is that there's something in your life right now that is changing and ebbing and flowing, and you might be asked to take a risk or a chance on something, but that it will be prosperous. Now, tuning into more specifically what I'm receiving for you with this as well, thinking about the new moon in Taurus, this is connected to the eclipse cycles that we had over the last year, and that is going to bring attention to Taurus and where that is in your chart. Taurus is your third house, the third house to Pisces, and this is also where Jupiter is now. So Jupiter is bringing expansion here, and when I'm thinking about the transits for you as well, Venus is in your 6th house, and we're getting out of this Venus retrograde. So the Venus retrograde may have had to do with your work environment, your work opportunities, exploring different opportunities with how you are making money, how you are doing certain things, or the things that you are interested in trying. And with Jupiter being expansive here in your 3rd house, it's giving you an opportunity to be connected with the right people. There may be someone that you reach out to and receive a really great opportunity from if you're willing to take that chance. There may also just be conversations that you have around this time or perhaps through the end of this year that are going to give you a lot of insight into a new realm of possibility for you. And this may be something that you're already working within. For instance, if you are already pursuing a project and you're interested in seeing where it leads, or you're just exploring new realms of life, there may be opportunities to have conversations with people that really bring expansion to these ideas that you already have. If you've planted a seed for something and you're waiting to see how it's going to grow, if it's going to grow, you may have conversations with people or experiences with even neighbors or a local environment that you're in, or friends, perhaps friends that you've known for a long time, or just people that you are connecting with in a work environment as well, that really bring you insight into what's possible, or give you a great reflection to show you that you are right on track, or that if you have an idea for something, that it is very viable and valuable. That said, perhaps most important when it comes to transits is that Saturn is now in your sign. Welcome to hell. I'm just kidding. Saturn deals with responsibility and discipline, and it really asks us to have systems in our life for how we are operating. So when you have Saturn dancing into your sign, this can be a time where you are asked to be a bit more strategic about things. In the past, if you were able to do something on a whim and it just kind of came together, this may be a time where you do have to be a bit more strategic. The benefit of this is that Saturn isn't going to ask you to do this without any help. Saturn's going to provide you the right skills or resources or learning opportunities or relationships to help you implement whatever it is that is on your plate right now. And so there might be something that you're being asked to do that is outside of your comfort zone, maybe asking for help with something, hiring someone for something, or just pursuing something in a new way, taking a different approach, even if the previous approach worked for you for a really long time. Saturn is a slow moving planet, so something could have worked for you for 30 years and it's not going to work for you anymore. And so there's an opportunity with Saturn in your sign to just see how there's new systems for things, new ways of thinking, new ways of approaching things. And it may not be obvious, it may not be what you're exactly thinking is in mind, but Saturn will reveal what is best to do, or the best way to navigate something when it arises. An example of this would be that if you feel stuck or stagnant in a certain area of your life, or really frustrated with something, but you have it in your mind that you just have to get it done, or you just have to do it in this way, but you keep trying to do it and it's not working in that way, Saturn is going to give you an opportunity to learn a new skill, to get a new resource, to learn about something new that may give you an alternative solution that might be 10 times better than what you're doing now. When we think about like the technological world, there's like all these different advancements happening right now, and there can be a lot of different benefits or downsides to those advancements. Sometimes it takes learning how to do something before we can see the use of it, or learning the side effects of something before we can see the parameters that need to be put on it. And there may be something specific in your life right now that requires some experimenting, seeing if you are actually interested in doing something by doing it, or learning a new software, learning a new code, if you're coding something, and knowing that there's going to be a learning curve in that, but once you learn it, then it's giving you this whole new toolkit, this whole new resource to use in future situations. So that may be what a lot of you are going through right now, is just kind of having to level up in sorts around specific situations in your life, or just in general. A lot of you may also be thinking about yourself as an individual and how you fit collectively into things, or how you fit into relationships. With Saturn highlighting your house but being opposite to Virgo, this is going to ask you to look at how you are situated within your relationships. And there may be some maneuvering that's needed in certain relationships to understand dynamics that are healthy versus unhealthy dynamics. Mercury retrograde just happened in your 7th house as well. We are actually still in Mercury retrograde as I'm recording this. So a lot of you may be going through an experience right now where you're practicing or needing to practice new communication methods in your relationship. As an overall message for this, I want to come back to prosperity lies ahead. So if there's something in your life right now where it's like, oh, I don't want to have to do that, or I don't want to have to learn that, or didn't I already go through that, or when is this going to end, or anything like that, there may be a need to kind of zoom out and see that at the end of this cycle, you will achieve something. Like if you're working on something and it's taking a long time, stepping back and reminding yourself why you started to begin with, or what you're working toward, can be really helpful, because it may be very obvious just by doing that, that indeed prosperity lies ahead. Okay, thank you Pisces for watching this. And if you would like to book a personal reading with me, you can do so on my website. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you to all of you who are here and who are subscribed. I really appreciate all of you. And again, I appreciate the support and the messages that I did receive when I was offline. And I really look forward to sharing with you all again. As I said earlier in this video, I don't have any specific expectations right now. I'm learning to really just go with the flow, and I'm practicing bringing some new ideas to life, trying some new things. So I'm going to see how that goes. And that is what I look forward to sharing with you all. But thank you so much for all of your support on here, on other platforms, and just in general. And I really look forward to connecting with those of you who decide to get a reading. And again, if you would like to book a reading, I do have space available right now on my website, and you can use the code YouTube for an additional slight discount. And I'm really excited to be able to do these readings right now, because again, I may not keep those open, but the spots that are open right now will stay open. So I look forward to having a reading with those of you who book. Thanks so much for watching.